Well, welcome in, everybody. It is Thursday, August the 17th, 2023. Welcome into TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio, and it is the Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. Maroon never looks so good with Maroon You. I've got Olin Buchanan to my left. I am David Nuño. Good morning, OB.
Good morning, David Nuño.
Any chance Jared knows what when we say it like that, knows what we're talking about?
He has no idea.
Have you ever heard of the movie, and I'm not trying to make you feel bad, I'm just asking the question, Good Morning Vietnam?
I've heard the name, but I am not familiar with it.
It's a good movie.
Robin Williams.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
So we're going to have a good morning because we are what?
16 days.
Is that it? And I think
16 or 17.
And we're way less than that for the first games of college football.
Yeah, shave a week off that.
Right.
So 10 days till college football, 9 days.
Looking forward to that. So we got a couple things to get into. I do want to talk a little Dion with you because I like a little bit of scuffles. So we'll talk about that. But we're going to start off with Texas A&M OB because ESPN has an article, and this is not like I don't think it was a mean article by any stretch. Who's got the highest ceiling, lowest floor, or like what is the highest ceiling for this team, lowest floor for this team? And I'm going to have you tell me what you think it is, and then I'm going to read what they think it is, because I think we're very close, and I don't think you have Aggie goggles, so we'll see how it goes.
What do I think the floor for this team is?
Yeah, and what do you think
I think the floor is 6-6. I think
that's the floor.
In another, I don't think they'll miss a bowl game, but in another year that's just a disaster, I think 6-6 would be the worst case scenario. And I think the best case scenario, and I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, but I think, again, we're saying the best case scenario.
With the talent on this team, the new direction offensively, second year of a defensive coordinator,
all
offensive line.
Best 11-1.
See, I'm exactly where you are. Exactly where you are.
I mean, I don't think that's – again, you're going to say, they went 5-7 last year. Okay, yeah, well, TCU went 5-7 2 years ago. I saw Auburn go 3-9 and play for the national championship the next year. Now, did they have some good fortune? Yeah, but the point is that bouncing back from a bad year isn't as uncommon as it used to be, especially with the transfer portal being available.
So when you make your assessment, is it totally A&M based, or is it I've got a lot of questions about other teams that A&M is facing.
Right. I've talked frequently about how I'm not buying that Tennessee's nearly as good as they were last year, right? Who else is on the schedule? Bama is another team. You came 2 yards from beating them at their place, and I've said it before. How do you lose Bryce Young and Will Anderson and Henry To'oTo'o and Battle and all and be better? And I know Alabama typically just reloads, right? But you can reload. Their guy is not as good. Their next guy is not as good as Bryce Young.
It's a different era, too. It's a different era with transfers, with these hot shot 5 stars getting paid. The mindset, the culture now takes on a bigger meaning. And that part, I assume Nick gets it right. But again, we don't know.
You don't have to go to Starkville. I don't know what it is about Starkville A&M.
Right.
Now, Mississippi State's not going to be a layup by any means. But, I think you have more talent. In fact, I've said this many times. I think with the exception of Alabama and Georgia and possibly LSU, everybody else in the SEC would trade rosters with A&M.
Yep.
I believe that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're one of those guys that buys into recruiting rankings, you would believe it too, because A&M's recruited so well the last few years. So 11-1, I think, is because it's hard to go undefeated in the SEC, especially in the West.
But LSU, you did beat them handily, but you do have to go to Baton Rouge,
where you haven't won since '94.
And they got Mason Smith back, and that's
they do, but they also lost B.J. Ojulari.
They did,
and Allie Gay, and a couple of their linemen. So they've got holes to fill.
They got holes to fill. I was about to say something else. Arkansas, I've got questions about them. I got questions about their offensive line. I got questions about their defense.
Big questions about their defense.
South Carolina, we had this exercise because everybody. By the way, I do like Shane Beamer. There's something about him I like.
He's a likable guy.
Very likable. So I'm not rooting against the dude except when he plays against Texas A&M. But this notion that they're going to build on an 8-5 year, whatever they were, and win 9 or 10 games this year, I'm telling you, they're probably losing 3 games in the month of September, or they could.
Yeah, 2 probably for sure, and as many as 3, because I think people are sleeping on Mississippi State.
So I'll give you that schedule. North Carolina to start. They could easily lose
That's
that
a toss-up.
one, right? Furman, they win. I think they lose the next game. You tell me. Georgia?
Yeah, I'm going to take Georgia now.
Yeah, I'm going to take Georgia too. Yeah. Okay, Mississippi State.
I think that's a toss-up game.
At Tennessee.
Even though I don't think Tennessee's as good as they were last year, and even though South Carolina won that game, I think as of today I'd be inclined to take Tennessee.
So A&M's taken on a lot of teams that Auburn, I'm sorry, I have questions about Auburn because they made a coaching change. They got all these new transfers that apparently are really good. How does that gel in their first SEC game?
Yeah, I was talking to a guy from Auburn last night, really nice guy, but gosh, you got finished listening to him, and you'd think that Auburn's a playoff contender.
Right.
And I'm like, their offensive line looks like a group of 5 all-star team because they got one guy from East Carolina, one guy they're starting who came in from Western Kentucky, one guy's from Tulsa. They got a tight end from Florida Atlantic. And look, it doesn't mean those guys can't play. Florida's best offensive lineman last year was a transfer from Louisiana, Lafayette, and he was a second-round draft choice. But, man, you're asking to bat 1,000? I don't know.
And look, this is not because I have this vendetta against Lane Kiffin. I'm not sold on anything about Ole Miss based on how they played SEC games last year. I'm just not.
I agree with you. Again, we talked about it. They beat one team with a winning record last year.
So when we talk about ceiling being 11-1,
I said that's the absolute best case scenario.
Right? Whatever it may be, 10-2, 11-1, that range. It is partially because of the talent we see at A&M, and partially because the teams we're playing all have certain questions that I can see why they would struggle. I can see why Bama would struggle. I can see it. I could also see them going 10-2 because it's Bama.
Because it's Alabama. Yeah, I think Jimbo actually several months ago made a statement. Said, "Yeah, we got warts, but everybody else has warts." And some of those teams look like toads. They have so many warts. So, when it comes down to warts, I'm not sure A&M doesn't have fewer warts than anybody else in the division.
Another team on the schedule that I think will be, I don't know about significantly better, but they will be better is Miami. Miami's got a brand new offensive coordinator, a brand new defensive coordinator. They've got a bunch of transfers as well. This is a team that you beat with pedestrian offense at home. I think that game should be A&M's favor regardless.
Miami lost some guys too.
They did.
In the transfer, some of their starters. Maybe that's good, maybe that's bad. I was never a believer in Tyler Van Dyke. And I'm assuming he's still the quarterback. And maybe this new offensive coordinator is going to make a huge difference. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
Right.
But I still question just the overall amount of talent that Miami has at this time. And I don't get it's a second year under Cristobal. I'm like, and what has Cristobal ever done?
He's a good recruiter. And that's about it. I mean, that's about it. So let me read to you what ESPN says. Let me ask you this before I read it to you.
What?
And I'm not going to read it all because I think you should go if you're interested in the article. But do you think ESPN is going to be fair or unfair about A&M?
If you could tell me who wrote it.
I think each one is written by a different guy. I'll have to revisit that.
I think ESPN typically is a little they lean. I'm not like some on our boards that think they're always a victim, but I think they do lean toward being a little more. I don't know, unfair is the word I want to use, but skeptical about A&M.
And you know what? We have probably given them some reason.
Yes, absolutely.
The name on the page says Scarborough, Alex Scarborough.
Okay, I think he's
fair-ish.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I took this as fair.
Okay.
I read it as fair. Highest ceiling, New Year's Six bowl game. Maybe Jimbo Fisher handing over the keys to the offense is really the answer. And then he goes on and say, come out 4-0 and confident. You get Arkansas, Alabama at home, which suddenly Arkansas is a neutral site game, but whatever, which suddenly look like winnable games.
I go back to A&M. We've talked about this for 6 months. 1 touchdown a game. You're 10-2 last year, and you're 2. Think about this: A&M controlled LSU
Yep.
and was 2 yards away from beating Alabama on the road. And had you won that, you would have beaten LSU and Alabama and still finished about third
Yep.
in the West because you're not getting it done at the other places. So start getting it done at the other places.
Lowest floor, exactly what you said. A 500 season would be a disaster, but can we really roll it out after last year? There's no reason the Aggies should have lost to App State, but they did. So 6-6 is what the absolute floor is.
That's
in
what
their
I
eyes.
believe. And if they were to see that 6-6, I would think that A&M would be looking for a new coach.
Yep. I would 100% agree with that.
But I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't. I'm more inclined. I think my pick is going to be 9-3, and I'll tell you why. I think 10-2 is what they should get.
Yeah.
At the least, I think 10-2. But then I have to take into account everything I've been seeing for the last 2 years and say there's probably a game in there
my
that
BAS.
they shouldn't lose.
Because they have. That's what they've done.
They have. That's what they've done. It's the same way when I talk about Texas. They should win the Big 12. They have the best talent. But I have to look at it and say, what makes me think that they're going to beat Kansas State? What makes me think that they're going to beat TCU?
And by the way, all this influx of talent that Texas has gotten, we'll see. Is the culture strong enough to survive that? And that is a question that I think all top programs are going to have to figure out in this new world of NIL and transfer and whatnot. All right, if you want to text the show, be a part of that conversation, do that at 979-693-1150, 979-693-1150. We go behind the glass and say hello to Nick Savage. Nick, good morning, sir.
Howdy, good morning, y'all.
I love the blue light on you.
Thank you. I actually remembered to turn it on this morning, so Dalton won't be mad at me.
Looks like you have a little makeup on.
Oh, I don't.
It's just the lighting.
Yeah.
You look like powder stunt double.
We have a blue light because
So we can see. It's not really a blue light. It just looks blue in that room, I think.
It's because David has always said that this room is too dark, so our solution is put a light in here, but it looks blue for whatever reason.
Does it look blue to you, or is it just me? Or does it?
I guess now that you bring it up.
It looks like a big iPhone, like an iPad is flashing in his face.
Yeah, now that you bring it up, I guess you could make the argument that there's some bluish tint. I guess.
Bluish tint, but it looks great. I mean, it's not as clear and bubbly as this room, but that's fine.
No,
it's not a
not at all.
studio. It's a production room. What's on your mind this morning?
Not too much. Had a little technical difficulty starting the show, so I was consumed with that. But I mean, I don't know if you want to get into it now, but that Deion Sanders clip.
Have you seen it yet, Ob?
I have not seen the clip.
Okay, I want you to watch the clip. So, before we set it up, Nick, you can help me out here.
There's just a little practice scuffle. Is what happened, and it looked like, there's two different jerseys, white jerseys, black jerseys, like, any other scrimmage, and it looked like one guy wearing a black jersey was getting, ganged up on by the other side, and, Deion got the team that didn't run over to help their teammate together and kind of chewed him out a little bit.
So, a couple things from this. I think Deion is brilliant in this regard. He knew there was a camera on him. He knew this was a viral type moment, in my opinion. Okay? Secondly, I agree with him. I want you to watch, and then I'll tell you why I agree. And I also disagree. It can be both, because what you're supposed to do isn't always what you should do. Here's the clip with Deion.
He just fought. I seen two of y'all walking off over there, and you got a teammate fighting. What they do there?
Nowhere.
What they do there?
Not here.
In one fight, we all fight. You understand that?
No, sir.
I don't want to see y'all walking off when somebody's fighting.
Yes, sir.
Never again.
So, for instance, OB, if we are at a press conference and you and Cease get into it, and he starts pushing you,
right.
It is my expectation to knock him on his butt, right? Because I'm your teammate. I got your back. If Cease and Travis Brown and Brett Zorneman, who are your dear friends, gang up on you, they're going down because TexAgs, Bronny, Nuño, Zane were attacked. That's the mentality it should be. Like, you got your brother's back. I tell my sons all the time, like, if your brother's in a scuffle, they're taking on two. They're never taking on one because you're a Nuño. That blood comes first.
Well, if it's one-on-one, that's one thing.
Depends if the guy's hurting my son.
But if it becomes
more,
yeah, then
you don't watch it and like, oh, look at that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
But I think he knew, because he always has a camera on him. Like, that's what they do at Colorado, and he did that at Jackson State too. There's always a tweetable moment in everything he does, which is brilliant. but also I can take a step from that and be like, come on, man, I know what you're doing.
Yeah, there are going to be those. You know, he's encouraged them to fight. What he's saying is, if you got a teammate in trouble, you go help him out.
Always. Now, you said you would love to debate me. I think is what you said, right?
Well, because you said
I'm on both sides.
I agree. Yeah.
That's how I'm wired.
You're looking at both sides of the.
I'm wired that way.
Okay.
But let's be honest. If that happened in a game and everybody gets in trouble, that's not like. Do you remember when Miami and FIU got into a fight?
Yeah. That was kind of extreme. Right? That was
I'm not saying I'm not advocating for that. I'm just saying if your quarterback gets touched. If all 5 offensive linemen aren't in that dude's face, then you're doing it wrong.
I remember other people might remember this too. It was probably 10 or 15 years ago. Washington wasn't very good, but they're playing Oklahoma. And I think it was the older brother of a guy that played here. And I can't remember, Baxter.
Okay.
And cheap shot at a guy for Washington. The next play, every player on the Washington offensive line.
I already love this story.
Went right at that guy, every one of them, and put him out of the game. Now, they got a 15-yard penalty.
It's worth it.
It was worth it.
It's worth it.
And they still lost the game.
Yeah.
And they were going to anyway. But every player went, was his name DeMarcus Baxter maybe? No, that's not. He played quarterback at John Tyler High School back in the 80s. But it was something Baxter.
Like that.
And I think his younger brother, who had a different last name, was like part of the 2013 recruiting class.
Now, I'm not saying they should have done this, but it would have been great you have to win the game, though, so it doesn't matter. But had every player on A&M gotten in Lane Kiffin's face when he went after Bryce Anderson. Every player.
Well, I think that would have been beautiful.
I would have
loved the 15-yard penalty. And
I would have gotten 30-yard penalty.
Yeah, sure, why not?
Anyway, Nick, anything else, buddy?
No, sir. I'm good to go.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you checking in with Jared Schultz there at the News and Social Center. Hello, buddy.
Jared, you going to fight? You're going to fight?
Oh, yeah. I was
somebody
about to say,
TexAgs?
I think it depends on the situation. I tend to keep the mindset you win 100% of the fights that you don't need to take part in. But it depends on the situation. If OB, I love you. If you cheap shot someone randomly and then he comes back at you, I don't need to get arrested for that.
No, but you can break it up. In that
yeah,
case.
you can break it up.
You can break it up.
Breaking it up, okay, that's a good point. But breaking it up is different than knocking him out. Because you said always respond and knock him on his butt.
I think you guys are missing my point. I'm not saying the fighting is good. I'm saying you better have your partner's back.
Sounds like if Jared's in the foxhole with you, you might as well consider yourself bagged and tagged.
You know, I know this. Kay Nagley would fight for me. Kennedy would. Jared, I don't know if you would, man.
Hey, okay, I got your back.
Right.
But if you do something really stupid, I'm not gonna get knocked out for something stupid.
Good to know. Now I know when something happens to you.
You're fine. You do MMA. You're gonna be fine, David.
I think I've told you the story.
What's up, Bob Loop?
Where I was at the Jimmy Buffett concert, and a guy started to smoke weed in front of us. Which, okay, you're at the and my wife said, "No, we're not gonna have this." And the guy was like Hunter Goodwin size, and she starts lecturing him because I'm not gonna sit here and I'm thinking, oh, great, here's what's going to happen. He's going to call her the word that all guys know what the word is, where then I'm going to have to punch him, and then I am going to accept.
Will Smith, Jada Pinkett style?
I'm going to have to, no, I would not use I would at least use a closed fist, and then accept that I am going to get beaten to a bloody pulp.
Right.
I know this. And I'm thinking, hey, Irma, maybe you need to have my back by not getting me involved.
Right.
But you know what? The guy just stopped and moved on.
What a nice
I couldn't believe it. Well, maybe Irma's just that intimidating.
My kind of guy. All right, we got to hit a break. Jared, we'll check in with some news and notes a little bit later. Right now, anytime there's a scuffle, you should go to one place to break bread and break meat.
You know,
that's even possible.
If you have a problem with somebody, if you were to just have Fargo's, you can build bridges. You can make peace at Fargo's, because you can't eat the food at Fargo's and be mad.
No. If you're fighting with your wife, go to Fargo's.
Go to Fargo's. The next thing you know, you probably 9 months later have another kid.
Right. No matter what the age is. Let's say Jared doesn't have your back one day. You're really mad at him for not saving you in this little scuffle with
whoever,
the Eagle, right? You take him to Fargo's. You guys explain it.
But we have to take the Eagle guys too, and then everybody's happy. Be like in perfect harmony.
You bring Lane Kiffin.
If you brought Lane Kiffin,
I don't know about that. Actually,
I think even Fargo's could build a bridge between
Kiffin Fisher Bridge?
Kiffin. Well, the Fisher Bridge, if it was on Fridays, because on Fridays you can get catfish, coleslaw, corn, and crunchy hush puppies.
Oh, man. It is Fargo's, one of the top 50 barbecue joints in the
world.
Oh, in the world. Okay. I wasn't sure about that.
Hey, did you know Mississippi State used to have I think it was linebacker. His last name was Womack. You know what his first name was?
Fargo.
Nope.
Oh.
Pork chop.
Give me what you want for a pork chop.
On Thursdays at Fargo's.
1701 South Texas Avenue in Bryan. Without a doubt, the best
barbecue in the world.
That's the trademark because it's true. It's Fargo's. And we're back, TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Saw Jason and Jackson Rollo at our kickoff event a couple of weeks back. Good to see them. The difference is real there. An independent insurance company built around educating you on exactly what you're paying for, doing the shopping for you so that you can accomplish your insurance goals. Their headquarters is on Highway 6 right here in College Station. Call them up, 888-44-ROLLO, or go to rolloinsurance.com. It is the Go Hour presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. OB. Time to pay the bills, basically, because we're going to do a little 23 and 23 presented by The Charge Apparel. Aggie owned and operated premier polos and tees made in the USA. 12% of total sales are donated to organizations supporting veterans and mental health initiatives. You can visit them at thechargeapparel.com or find them on Instagram. And our number today is the guy who wears number 7. His name is?
The Moose. Moose Muhammad.
OB, this is what I want to say about Moose. And I mean this as a compliment. He is a forgotten man at times. And why I say that is because we talk about Evan Stewart, right? Mm-hmm. By the way, Moose is 7 on his jersey and the number 7 on this list. We talk about Evan Stewart a lot. We talk about the return of Anaya Smith. And I feel like Moose is sometimes forgotten until you say Moose and you're like, oh, he could be one of the best receivers on the team.
I am a big fan of Moose. I would love to be his agent or his marketer. I cannot. Everybody goes, Moose, every time he makes a play. The guy's he only needs one hand. Some receivers say, man, he's got great hands. He only needs one hand. We've seen it often, not just the LSU one-handed grab. He did one against New Mexico, maybe one against Ole Miss, one-handed. The guy, I never could understand why they're not playing him more. You can't take that guy off the field. He is too good. If A&M ought to be marketing some antlers, so the Moose crew is out there, that survived.
The movie Vacation, wasn't there a moose?
There was Wally World.
Wally the Moose. Yeah.
I would. I don't understand why he doesn't have an NIL deal with Bluebell Ice Cream for their Moose Tracks flavor.
I didn't know there was such a thing.
Yeah, Moose. It's good too.
Is it good?
Yeah. He's really is a spectacular player, and we've only seen the tip of the iceberg, I believe.
Yeah, he has the ability, and even when he wasn't playing a lot, what was it 2021 when he first got in there? He made a couple catches there. You're like, why is this guy not playing? And then there's nothing good about Anaya Smith getting hurt. Please recognize what I'm saying. There is nothing good about that. But if something good came from it, was we got to see this guy in action a lot. Combine those two dudes together this year with Evan Stewart, with Noah. When people talk about A&M potentially having one of the best wide receiver rooms in the country, that is why. Because Anais is proven. Moose proved himself last year. Evan Stewart proved himself last year and is going to keep getting better.
When you throw to Moose, it's like going to the zoo. You know why?
Why?
Because you see a moose and then you see yak, yards after catch. Watch him. The moose and then the yak. He catches it, and I don't know. I mean, he's just like Anais, but nobody is more productive on running with the ball after the catch than Moose.
So last year, if I got these numbers correctly, 37 catches for 594 yards, 84.8 yards per game that he played in with 4 touchdowns.
And he missed 2 games. And then one game he just, as we understand, just was out there to return a kick. And then, that was the sleeve gate. But I think that's all he made amends. He made amends. And I just go back to that game against LSU. And Connor says, hey, I'm going to trust this guy's going to make a play and put it near him. And if you put it near him, there's a better chance that he'll make the play than not. Moose, I'm so glad they're finally putting him out on the field.
The Moose is loose.
The Moose is freaking loose.
And now, the Moose, which is a Ferrari that's been driving in the neighborhood, right? And you can't really go very fast, right?
Yeah.
That Ferrari, I don't know why I'm using these comparisons. The Ferrari now is actually
it's on the interstate.
It's on the interstate because
right.
Bobby Petrino has opened it up. No tolls either. You just go.
And, he's a guy that Petrino's idea, as I understand, beyond feeding the studs, is the crossing routes. And like I said about the yak, Moose will get the yak. So it's going to be a fun year with, to me, Moose is just, he's shown signs of not just being good, but being spectacular. I mean, how can you look at the LSU game, for instance, and disagree with that? I want more Moose, Moss Moose.
When they say you have 2 quarterbacks or 3 quarterbacks, you don't have any quarterbacks. It's not the same thing with wide receivers. When you have 2, 3 that could be ones on other teams, one day it's going to go to Moose. One day he's the hot hand because the reads work out, his ability to get open. They double on Evan. He's the guy that gets open. You can have multiple ones as wide receivers, and I think there's going to be several games where Moose leads the way.
I know what you're saying, and I'm not going to say that they're going to be like Alabama in 2020, 2019 when they're trotting Waddle and Smith and Ruggs and Ridley out there. But to your point, you can have multiple guys that are NFL caliber, big-time NFL caliber receivers, and let them work together. And I think that's what A&M has.
They have that, and I love that he did and can rewrite that one moment that we all remember that it was dumb. The whole situation was dumb. I'm going to say the entire situation was done. He came back and was a huge part of that win against LSU, right?
Yeah.
And he's coming back this year to show that he is, NFL bound, because I think he is going to be NFL bound. He's being able to rewrite his story that was not even complete last year.
I would mark it Moose calls. So you
calls.
just didn't say moose. You just, something that makes it sound like a moose. Do you know what a moose sounds like?
I really don't want to hear those in Kyle Field.
No.
Or is that an elk call? What's the difference between a moose and elk? Do they make the same kind of noise?
I've never seen an elk get yak.
I don't know. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know. I'll find
Jared,
a clip.
Jared, what you don't understand is OB has all the animals you can imagine. Because when we do Milliken Reserve, we start doing some of the animals. He makes the noises. Like watch, cat, dog, giraffe.
I don't know what giraffe makes a noise.
Horse, turtle.
Does a turtle?
I don't know. I'm just trying to get you.
It's a snapping turtle.
This is what he does.
It's a snapping turtle.
At parties? You've never seen OB do this at parties?
I haven't been to a party with OB, unfortunately.
Dude, we all
Every
gather
day
up.
a party on the
If you want to go party on Saturday night, then let's do it.
See, no. We party daily, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m.
Don't expect him to back you up in a fight, OB, if you get in one.
Oh, hey, if he started it, I'm out. Sorry. In my neighborhood, if my guy started it, it doesn't matter. I got his back. Sorry.
Yeah, he's got my back like
way back.
Like Brutus had had Caesar's back.
Et tu, Brute. Ladies and gentlemen, Young Alumni Weekend coming up here for Aggie's class of 2011 to 2023. A weekend of connection, nostalgia, and fun hosted by the Association of Former Students. Come back to Aggieland September 23rd to connect with other former students at the Young Alumni Tailgate. You get great food, games, pre-game yell practice as former yell leaders from the classes will lead a yell practice as the team prepares to take on Auburn. Tickets to the Young Alumni Weekend Tailgate are available for purchase at tx.ag/YAW. You can also sit with friends at the football game by purchasing a ticket in the reserve block for the Young Alumni Weekend. A link to the purchase discounted football tickets will be provided in your tailgate ticket confirmation. Check out tx.ag/YAW for details and share links with your friends. Be sure to follow Aggie Network and TAMU Young Alumni for the chance to win free tickets to the tailgate, sideline passes to Midnight Yell, parking spots, and much, much more. It's the Association of Former Students Young Alumni Weekend.
Playing low.
We're back. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. Let's go to the hotline. We're joined by Stephen McGee from Paragon Financial, RQB1. Stephen, good morning, buddy.
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. How are we?
Good, man. So I doubt you've seen the Dion clip. Have you seen it?
No.
So at practice yesterday,
Oh, McGee would be all over this.
Oh, I want to know his take on it. A fight broke out, and I guess some of the teammates. Actually, can we cue it up with him on? Nick, is that even allowed? Okay, watch this.
He just fought. I seen two of y'all walking off over there, and you got to keep teammate fighting. What they do that at?
Nowhere.
What they do that at?
Not here.
In one fight, we all fight. You understand that?
No, sir.
I don't want to see y'all walking off when somebody's fight.
Yes, sir.
Never again.
If one fight, we all fighting, Stephen, which I agree with that methodology, even though I think Dion did it for the cameras. But that being said, when you were playing, if somebody would knock you on your butt after a play, I would assume you'd expect your offensive lineman to have your back the entire time, right?
Well, I sure did bet the house that they were going to be behind me because I did pick some fights in practice. It's funny. You talk about the differences in philosophy as it relates to fighting. Fran was always a big believer in building the team, and so he actually at times was trying to get me riled up to stir the pot in order to provoke an incident where the offense was kind of trying to rally behind a particular player and created some sparks at practice. I'll never forget Sherman's first spring practices. We did something similar because we had been doing that for, the previous years, and it was very normal and actually probably accepted and or encouraged. We learned very quickly that there was going to be no fighting at practice because it came from the NFL mindset, and your best football player gets caught up in a fight and breaks a hand in the NFL. That's a huge no-no. That could cost you a season and a job. And so there was never fighting. It was looked at as a selfish decision, which I kind of agree with, honestly. So, and I also agree with your prior statement of I think he's doing it for the cameras. It's Deion Sanders after all. So I'm not a big proponent of fighting, if that's fair.
But didn't I see you on at least a couple of occasions after a play get up and start shoving with maybe some of the defensive guys? I'm not talking about on your team. I'm talking about on other teams. Did I not see that fiery personality come out in you?
Yeah, you did, but I'm not saying it was right. that was also the previous, that's what I've kind of learned culturally from the previous staff, and that was kind of encouraged and accepted, and I was a little bit fiery at times and emotional, and so yeah, I mean, it definitely happened. But if I'm building a football team today and my quarterback does that, I'm going to be on him like white on rice.
Talking to Stephen McGee here on TexAgs Radio. Stephen, let's do a little buy, sell, lease. I'm going to throw you some offensive coordinators. I'll give you a little background on each of them, and you just tell me who you're buying, who you're selling, and who you're leasing. These are three really good ones, all right? First one, Bobby Petrino. I think you know his resume pretty well and what he might be able to do here at Texas A&M. Ryan Grubb, the offensive coordinator at Washington that I think A&M was interested in hiring. Michael Penix Jr., his quarterback, really, really good. And Garrett Riley, who helped TCU get to the playoffs, obviously, to the championship game, and then moved over to Clemson. Buy, sell, and lease.
Well, it's a tough one. I'm super excited about Petrino and what he can bring for offense. I think we're the dark horse, so to speak. A lot of upside there. So let's lease Petrino. The question of which one am I going to buy between Washington and Clemson? Boy,
that's tough.
I like the quarterback situation at Washington a little bit more. I'll buy that guy, and I'll sell Garrett Riley, maybe just because he's arguably as high as he's ever been and set for a little bit of a pullback, so to speak.
OB, you got any thoughts on that?
I'm buying Petrino all day long, and this is not a provincial thing. He's done it.
Yep.
So I'm buying Petrino. I am going to lease the guy at Washington.
Ryan Grubb.
He's got Penix to work with.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to sell Riley because as great as supposedly he is as an offense coordinator, we talked about yesterday how TCU just got bailed out by luck so many times last year. They had a quarterback, a lot like McGee, with a lot of moxie about him.
Yep.
and then and feistiness, and then quite frankly, I look at the personnel, and I'm sure Klubnik's going to be a lot better this year, but I look at the personnel at Clemson, and their running back is good, but he's not great, and things like that, and I'm just not overwhelmed.
Not overwhelmed. All right, Stephen, so here's what seems like an easy question, but I know it's going to be, there's nuance to it. What makes an effective play caller, offensive coordinator in your eyes? Because the way I used to think of it was that play that you call, but really it's all in the setup, right?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think most offense coordinators have a very similar overlap in the playbook, and I've discussed that before. I think that the ability to call a certain play at a certain time is so important. They have such a good feel. I always felt like Gary Kubiak was a great play caller in his systems. They ran very similar things as Jason Garrett did. They used a different terminology, but the overlap was very high. But the difference was that he did a great job of being able to call the right play at the right time, and mirrored the run to the pass so well, as well. So it looked very similar to the run play, and it got chunk plays for Andre Johnson consistently with a very, very average, or if not below average, quarterback in Matt Schaub. So to me, it's all about when you call those plays and the feel of the game, of the timing as it relates to down and distance and momentum and all those funny things that do have an impact on a good offensive play call.
Like as it relates to down and distance and things like that, and circumstances of the game, like maybe you don't run a freshman to the short side sweep if the other team only has 2 timeouts and something like that. Maybe that wouldn't be a great play call, and I know Steve knows what I'm talking about. I think it's a coach that not only understands the strengths of his offense, but is so dialed in that he knows the weaknesses of his defense. And I'll give you an example. Unfortunately, it was against A&M a couple of years ago. Say what you want to about Kendall Browse, but Arkansas lines up at the 20-yard line, and they've got Traylon Burks out there on Miles Jones, and they have to have known that Jones had been slowed by an injury.
Yep.
So they call the just a go route. Well, what do you know? Arkansas moves. 5-yard penalty. They don't even huddle.
They just do it.
They just do it because they know they got the matchup they want. They know, and they get an 85-yard touchdown.
Yep.
Know not only who your strengths are, but be so in tune that you know the weaknesses of the other team.
Yeah.
And exploit them.
Hey, Stephen, what about so our 23 and 23 is on Moose Muhammad today, number 7 on the list. And the way I kind of set it up when we were talking about him, I feel like sometimes when we talk about the offensive playmakers, he's a forgotten man. And then when you say him, everyone's like, oh, yeah, Moose. He's got so many skills, the one-handed catches, his ability to break free. Just your thoughts on Moose overall.
Yeah, I love Moose Muhammad. I think he made himself. I think last year, about the midpoint of the year, he went from a good wide receiver to a really elite one. And I think the next step for both him and Evan Stewart is to prove that they can do it consistently well every game, right? That's the next great step for guys at any level. And, just not having drop passes, being the dependable guy, the right route every play. And I think that they're there. I really believe he's a game breaker, and we're fortunate to have 2, 3, potentially 4, with Noah Thomas out there, which we haven't really seen, but we've heard about. So definitely a great route runner that isn't just an intermediate route runner, guy with good hips, gets in and out of the break, but a guy that can take top off coverage as well, which is something I feel like A&M missed prior to last year, or had guys that maybe didn't show the ability to really do that for a couple of years.
Excuse the dumb question, but is it as simple as if you double team this guy's going to do his thing? I mean, that's what is always said, but is it really that simple? You double team Anaya Smith and Moose Muhammad's going to have a field day. Is it that simple?
Yeah, it can be. I tell you, it's hard to double everybody, right? It's not impossible. So if you got to pick your poison, and if they want to double Evan Stewart at X, which a lot of people do, like the Mike Evans guy, try to take him out then two things happen. One is you probably have some options in the run game with two high safeties, and then if they're playing single high and trying to, still have an extra guy over there to the X, then there's going to be open guys at Z and in the slot. So it's all about finding mismatches, and that's really the job of the quarterback. But the good news is you're going to have guys that at multiple positions that if they get the one-on-one, they're going to win.
All right, let's hit a break here. We'll come back with more with Stephen McGee and OB. It's the Go Hour presented by the Warehouse of CC Creations, TexAgs Radio. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Go Hour presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. Stephen McGee still with us on the hotline there from Paragon Financial. Stephen, I want to keep it with the offensive coordinator talk with you and just kind of ask this question. How different could the play calls and maybe the way they get into their offense be depending on which quarterback Jimbo ends up being? I know many of us are very high on Connor and what that could be, but how different could it look if it is Max or if it is Connor?
Yeah, Max is definitely an athletic guy that can use his legs. I don't think they're going to probably use as much as like the zone read game and that part that you could probably use a little bit more with Connor. But I think the offense is going to look pretty similar, honestly, between those two guys. I think they can, they're very similar, I guess, as big picture skill set. I don't think that they change it up a whole lot. Max Johnson, I think this one of his greatest strengths is that he's just so football brilliant, and he, from everything I've ever heard from any coaches or whatnot, is that he can really grasp concepts and terminology very quickly, and it makes a lot of sense coming from the pedigree he does as a dad. And so, maybe you could argue that in Max's favor that you could probably dive into the X's and O's even more so with Max. But I think the offense looks very similar between both those guys. I don't think their skill sets too terribly different that forces the play caller to adjust drastically.
Go ahead, Opie.
I like Max.
Yep.
I do. And I do think they're going to go with Connor, and I think I like Connor more, but I like Max. And if Jimbo picks Max, I'm going to go, I'm surprised. But then we'll say, okay, well, let's go. Let's see what Max does.
Right.
Because I don't think it's I think you can win with Max. I think you can win because of Connor.
Right.
I think you can win with Max. And that's just my opinion based on what little I've seen from both of them.
Stephen, how different was your mentality going from year one where you became the starter late to year two of starting, like mentally entering that next season?
Yeah, I think leaps and bounds for me. It felt like I understood the offense. Like I wasn't reacting near as much. I think things came a lot quicker. Picking up the protections and seeing what the game just slowed down quite a bit. I felt like it was that second spring, after my freshman year, that I really felt like the game started to take a notch down as far as speed of the game. And so, I feel like that's the time now for Connor. It's obviously going to be a lot of pressure on the kid, and he's extremely talented, but he's going to have to take a huge step, and it's go time for him,
The one thing I have to admit, look, I know that these practices when we go, it's not live, but his touch on that pass, it just especially his connections with Evan that I've seen and others as well, but the timing and the touch have been phenomenal, Ob.
Yeah, and he doesn't mind taking some chances. He reminds me of Vincent Chase and
Vinny Chase
and Entourage. You remember when they went to Vegas?
Yeah.
And they said Vincent always wins, and it seems like that Connor will gamble some. Like I'm talking about one of the passes to Moose that wasn't a touchdown, but it was like a 50-yard gain, 40-yard gain against LSU.
Right.
And he just put it up there to see if Moose could make the play, and he does. And he said, hey, I'm going to take that chance because you know what? I'm going to win. I like that about him.
Yeah, that pass to Moose, I was like, I think it's going to be picked, and it was perfectly placed.
Are you talking about the touchdown?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right between two. McGee used to throw him like that.
Just like that.
Yeah. I wish.
Stephen, I appreciate you, brother. Thanks very much.
Have a good one.
See ya. Stephen McGee there on the hotline. OB, we're going to do one more, all right?
Sure.
We're going to talk about preseason expectations for quarterbacks and how that equates to success or not success in that year. Because you look at the last couple of years, I think you've got examples of both.
Okay.
All right, we'll
Let's
go through
do it.
some of those. It's TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're back. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. OB going to hang out for a little bit longer here on the program. OB, I had a little topic for us, right? So I started thinking to myself, let's figure out what these preseason hype means for a player. And I'm probably going to more focus on quarterback, but there's been many years that, like, they've gotten it right. And I think this year they may have it right. So we'll kind of go through some of the names out there. But there's a lot of guys that come in with this hype that they do not live up to the hype. So we'll kind of go through those. So the top guys entering 2023. I'm just going to name some names, and then we'll kind of target more quarterbacks. Caleb Williams. It's gotten better every year, right? Brock Bowers, Marvin Harrison Jr., Harold Perkins, Drake May, Michael Penix, Blake Corum, Jordan Travis. Those are kind of the names.
I'll take them all.
That you hear. From a quarterback perspective, just to kind of get a little bit more targeted, Caleb Williams is, like I said a moment ago, like, he's gotten better each year he's played. Michael Penix, there's a lot of hype around him. A fifth-year senior. The guy has done so much. Drake May is potentially
phenomenal.
The first or second quarterback taken in the draft, right? So at least that's the talk. Another name that keeps coming up that I think you will be like, we'll see. Bo Nix.
Yeah, I don't buy that at all. Bo Nix he's a solid quarterback.
Yeah.
And he's a guy that, like some others were talking, he's a guy, to me, it seems like he's that guy that always finds the pile of dog stuff to step into.
Was it somebody I saw tweeted that, like, in New York or somewhere, they had like a Bo Nix Heisman kind of like campaign thing going on.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Bo Nix is a solid quarterback, but he makes a lot of mistakes.
Yep.
No, I'm not. I heard him talking about Bo Nix last year as a Heisman contender, and I just kind of laughed. I mean, if he was always overhyped at Auburn, like quarterbacks typically are, and if his name had been something else, he probably wouldn't have gotten nearly the hype. But, you know, his dad had been a quarterback at Auburn, so, hey, look what he's going to do. He's been an okay quarterback.
The next one, I have not watched enough to have a really strong opinion, but I know there's a lot of hype around Jordan Travis at Florida State. A lot of hype around him.
Well, he's really athletic, and you know what? He does a good job. He's at that I always forget his name because I'm not seeing him all the time, the 6'7" receiver who transferred from Arizona State, and he knows that he can throw it up, and that guy can go get it. And isn't that what being a quarterback is?
Yeah, it sure is. Yeah.
So, and he's very athletic. So, yeah, I think Jordan Travis is pretty good.
So I saw a tweet, though. This is more about Mike Norvell than it is about Jordan Travis, but just to kind of put this in perspective, a Mike Norvell coach team has never won a true road game over a ranked opponent. They are 0-7 in that time.
Well, road games against ranked teams are tough to win.
They are tough to win, yeah.
I can think of a lot of other reasons to be critical of Mike Norvell than that. So, you know, okay, you know, all right, if that's the knock on him, okay, but you can probably find a lot of coaches that are like that.
Couple other names that get a lot of preseason hype. Cam Rising at Utah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll throw you
Sam Hartman. He's like Steve McGee type of. Sam Hartman is interesting because, man, he can really, really spin it and everything. But you got to show me, and maybe he doesn't have to, but, you know, he did in the ACC.
Yeah.
And there's not the greatest defenses in the ACC, and Clemson's usually good. And last year they weren't very good. But Notre Dame plays most of its games in the ACC.
Yeah.
So maybe it won't be any different. I guarantee you Notre Dame improved at quarterback by bringing him in. J.J.
McCarthy, I'm kind of big on him, but he's got to prove it to me. But I'm excited about him. He's a name that gets a lot of preseason hype. Jaden Daniels, certainly getting a lot of preseason hype. And we just had his picture up a minute ago. Jalen Daniels at Kansas.
I think Jaden Daniels gets a little bit – I get it, but I still think he's a really good athlete. But I think if you play LSU, what you want to do is you want to make sure Jaden Daniels stays in the pocket. And if you can do that, you're going to be successful against him because I think he's a good enough passer, but I just don't think he's going to beat you with his arm consistently.
So that list that we just gave you, there's going to be somebody or several guys that we don't look at the same way in 3 or 4 months. They will fall out of that favor because there's examples of that in the last couple of years. Last year, for the most part, because I Googled preseason quarterback hype entering 2022, and a couple different lists came up. Bryce Young, well, he lived up to that again, right? So he did. C.J. Stroud lived up to that again. But now some names that didn't live up to that. Let me see if I have it. I think Will Levis was okay, but he certainly did not live up to the hype that he had. And that part of it might have been the offensive coordinator, could have been the offensive line. But Will Levis was not the same quarterback last year that we were told he was going to be. He did get drafted, but just for this point of view, he didn't live up to the hype.
No, then there were a lot of contributing factors, but bottom line is no, he wasn't as good as he's supposed to, as he was billed.
Another name that did not live up to the hype, and he's probably going to do pretty well this year, but not to the hype that we expected. DJ Ugalugale, whatever, DJU.
Yeah, where is he now?
He's at Oregon State.
Oregon State. Okay, maybe that's just a better fit for him, but. Again,
but do you remember the hype around him last year? Yeah, it was a lot.
And then it was even the year before that when Lawrence got sick.
Yeah.
And Ujalele came in and, he's supposed to be this 5-star guy and he's all this, and he just wasn't. And then you see him last year when he's a full-time starter, and he just wasn't that good. He's not that good.
I think this year he's not getting the hype that some of the other names that I gave, but his replacement, Cade Klubnik, is getting some hype out there, as he should.
Yeah, and I watched him because I was interested in him. I'm interested in those Westlake quarterbacks, and he was okay at times. At times he wasn't, like a true freshman will be. If we expect Connor Wigman to take a step forward in his second year, why would we not expect Clay Klubnik to do the same?
100%. So, again, these are last year's guys that got a lot of hype entering the year that did not live up to the hype. Will Levis did not. For whatever reason, did not. DJ did not. The next one, you called it. You know where I'm going with this. You told me months before the season, this guy, because he was, at this point last year, the name I'm about to say, was a top 5 Heisman name.
Mm-hmm.
And his name is?
Tyler Van Dyke.
Come on.
I would go back and I'd see, who did he have big games against? Mm-hmm. And how did he perform when he was playing against good teams? And it just didn't add up to me. Like, so you go out, and they didn't play Vanderbilt, but you go out and you have a big game against Vanderbilt. Does that mean you're a great player? I go back to Nick Starkel when he was here, and there was people here that was, Nick Starkel's going to be this, he's going to be that. Yeah, because he lit up New Mexico. That's going to, or in the bowl game, Wake Forest, which was one of the worst pass defenses in the country, that makes you think he's going to be a great player. No, you got to show me that you can do it against teams with a pulse. And I didn't see that from Tyler Van Dyke. Does he have a physical gifts? No doubt. But, I just didn't see it. And then when they came to play A&M, I didn't see it.
You didn't see it either. Now, he might have a bounce-back year this year.
Absolutely.
Right? But the hype did not match the results last year for him. Here's another one, and by the way, I'm going to sound a little hypocritical because I think he's going to have a pretty big year this year. But last year, there was a lot of hype for Devin Leary at NC State. He did not live up to that. Now
he missed half the year
because of a season-ending injury. So his is an injury situation, but there was hype around him. Do you remember all the hype around Keaton Slovis when he left USC for Pitt? I don't think he lived up to that at all.
How many USC
56.2 QBR.
It's a good thing they got Caleb Williams transfer in, because how many quarterbacks were supposed to be good at USC and haven't been?
Yep.
What was his name? JT Daniels?
Yep.
Is he still playing?
He is playing at Rice.
That guy, his goal is to play at every Division I school
that he can.
no, every one.
So, Slovis, when he was at USC, his QBR was 56.2. Last year at Pitt, it went up, right? Nope, went down, 45.9.
Well, the competition got a little bit better, probably, but
sure.
And maybe didn't have as much help, but still.
So this next guy, there was preseason hype last year, and I don't think preseason hype matches what is happening now, but there's some optimism in the state of Alabama about Peyton Thorne, because at Michigan State, he looked pretty good with Kenneth Walker there. Kenneth Walker leads. That offense was pretty atrocious last year. Now he's going to go join Hugh Freeze. He's another one of those names that came up quite a bit last year.
Better coach to work with.
Yes.
I don't believe in their in the guys around them.
Yeah.
If the running back, and I can't think of his name right now, the one that's in some trouble, if he's able to play, that's a threat. I don't believe in the receivers. They're very excited about their tight end, who's a transfer in from Florida Atlantic.
Yep.
But Peyton Thorne, do you go from playing in the Big Ten and go to the SEC West and just think things are going to get easier?
But I'll say this. If he's the guy, he's better than what I saw from Robbie Ashford.
Well, yeah, I'll give you that.
Because Robbie Ashford, at least the game that I saw, I'm embarrassed A&M lost that game because he was so bad.
Yeah. Now, I will say this. He did have one pass that was going to be a touchdown on the right sideline that the guy dropped.
Yeah.
But even then, if he catches it, they score, 20 points. It was just that A&M. That might have been the worst A&M performance from the offense that I've ever seen.
It was bad. Here's another name. Preseason hype is not the right way to phrase this one from last year, but there was some buzz around Connor Bazelak. He goes to Indiana, and he just has a horrible year. And they were one of the worst offenses in the country, and that's coming from a program that I think had one of the worst offenses in the country here. So I'm going to just kind of revisit quickly 2021, preseason hype around quarterbacks, and tell me how things played out. Spencer Rattler, Oklahoma. In 2021, remember where
he lost his job.
He lost. Remember the buzz around Spencer Rattler?
Oh, he's supposed to be the best quarterback. He's going to be a Heisman Trophy, probably the favorite coming into the season.
And a top 5 quarterback taken, top 5 pick,
without a doubt. We thought, hey, the Texans are going to be seeing if they can draft Spencer Rattler.
Yeah, that hasn't worked out. Now, is it possible that he has a really good year this year? I don't think. I already told you my thoughts on South Carolina, how I think they're going to. But he did not match that in 2021. In 2022, he's supposed to be the savior at South Carolina. He was pretty good.
He was good. He was not an elite
He was better at the end, but he was pretty good.
Against, bad teams.
Sam Howell was pretty good entering 2021, right?
Yeah, Sam Howell was he was a Heisman contender coming into 2021. He was.
Here's one that had a lot of hype going into
it.
He
wasn't in 2020.
And this guy I know, and I thought he was going to do great here, but he was replaced very early, and some of it due to injury. Remember the hype around De'Aaron King in Miami in 2021?
Yeah. He should have stayed at UH.
Yeah. Sure should have.
Really good player at UH. Probably had better players around him, too, at UH.
He did, but he did not live up to.
Didn't he get hurt there?
He did get hurt. I think twice he got hurt, if I remember correctly. And that's what led to Tyler Van Dyke catching his shot, where there was hype about him entering 2021, or 2022, I should say, and he didn't live up to that. A couple of the other names. Matt Corral, I think he lived up to it. He got hurt, but he lived up to it.
He was a good quarterback.
Grayson McCall at Coastal Carolina. They had a good year.
Don't even remember him.
DJU.
No.
So I guess the point of the exercise is, like this year, a name that I did not mention, that there's a lot of preseason hype about. He's got a 6-pack. He cut his hair. He's leading touchdown drives. Quinn Ewers at Texas. He might end up doing that. But there is a lot of hype, at least on social media, about Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, there is, and I see it to a certain degree. Once again, he's getting a better offensive line around him. He's got really good receivers, and in a small sample size, he was kind of inconsistent for what I could see. Yeah. But he would show the flashes. I'll say this: and it wasn't his first year, but if it was Connor Wigman, and I saw the same thing from Connor Wigman in his very first year, I would be saying, okay, now, this year, he's going to explode.
Yeah.
So
you get it.
Yeah, I get it.
I get it. But it doesn't mean that success is coming this year either.
Oh, it's never assured. So
if I were to tell you Connor is a top 10 quarterback in college football, does that mean A&M's in a New Year's Six Bowl at least?
Mate.
See,
I still got to stop the run, man.
Well, I know that, but let's kind of go through because Caleb Williams, one of the worst defenses in the country, right? Mm-hmm. They were terrible.
And
they were a game away from the playoffs.
But they were also in the Pac-12.
In the Pac-12. This is true. Another name, Michael Penix Jr. Washington got where they got because of him. I mean, I know there's more than just him, but he was that good. North Carolina didn't have a great year last year.
They didn't.
And Drake May was pretty
good.
Drake
May's really good.
So it doesn't necessarily mean he threw for 4,321 yards, 38 touchdowns, 7 picks. He was really good.
And that, to me, that's why I'm hesitant when you ask your question is if Connor is a top 10 quarterback, do I think A&M is going to be playing in a New Year's Six Bowl at least? And I'm saying I still got to stop the run.
But I do think if that happens, they are. And that is maroon goggles. 1,000. That's not analysis. That's just my gut telling you. If Connor Wigman is a top 10 quarterback, the difference maker at that position, what it means.
Well, they're a lot better. I mean, they're incredibly better than they were. That means, they're probably averaging well over 30 points a game.
The other one, like Oregon had a great year last year, and Bo Nix was the guy. He's considered a top 10 quarterback. He is. I don't know if I buy it.
What, Bo?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to have to put a Nix on that one.
And then Jordan Travis was the other name we brought up earlier.
Travis, I have no issue with. He's a good player. But
if you are able to have that, there's no one size fits all in this conversation, right? There's no like if this happens, this happens. But the likelihood is absolutely in hand. So if I were to tell you Quinn Ewers is top 10 quarterback in college football this year, does that mean Texas is probably a New Year's Six Bowl or better?
In their case, it might be because
of the Big 12.
Because of the Big 12. And
so it's the conference.
And that's part of it. And Texas's defense, while not, stellar, they could stop the run at least to some degree.
Okay. So if I said top 10 defense at stopping the run.
Oh, yeah.
And number 50 quarterback.
Well, I don't know. You say 50. Now you're talking, he's very average.
Or top 10 quarterback, 50 stopping the run.
All right, then I've got you in the
New Year's Six
Bowl. I'll
Bowl.
buy in the New Year's Six Bowl.
So as long as this team, and again, we're not saying absolutes, we're just talking scenarios out. If this team is 50th best at stopping the run, but they have a top 10 quarterback.
Yes.
They're okay.
With all those offensive weapons, if he's a top 10 quarterback, then yes, I will say they're a New Year's Six game. And a average, just average again in stopping the run.
And all of this is for me to say that's why I'm happy the expectation. Everybody's got this quiet expectation about A&M, even the rankings. Yeah, we put them at 23, but they got to show me. That's the theme this year. I like that because I think they can show people, and I think it won't be that long. I think by the end of September, we're like, A&M can be that team.
Yeah, I expect it to be. I'll say it now, I think A&M's going to be 5-0 going into the game against Alabama. And if they're not, I'm going to be stunned. I know the Arkansas game's not going to be easy. It's never easy.
Never easy.
But you are better. You have better players than every team that you play in the first 5 games, and you've got a different approach on offense, and you got your second year under the defensive coordinator, all those things we're talking about. Freshmen have grown up somewhat. If you're not 5-0, then I don't know where you're going.
So K-Mick on the YouTube page does have this point. If your offense is loaded in scoring, other teams are behind and are not going to run the ball. So there is that.
There is that. Okay. I'll take the lead and take my chance. And maybe then we need to worry about the pass rush again.
When we come back on TexAgs Radio, thank you, OB. Appreciate you. We'll go through some of these chats on the YouTube page and also on the text line and get you set up for the remainder of the program. Right now we're talking about Chance McClain and Heritage Films. They make documentary films about families, family businesses, family ranches, and just people that are important in your life. It doesn't have to be about the family. It could be somebody very, very important, your boss, potentially, your neighbor, somebody that you want to honor and tell that story. Or maybe you just want to make sure that your family story is preserved because you've got all the information. You know the stuff about your grandparents. You know the stuff about your parents. And your kids, they haven't really absorbed that info. So you put it on video. You have Chance McClain and his crew tell your story for you with the pics, with the videos. And then you have the little family gathering. It doesn't have to be. It can be a big family gathering. You can do it like at the theater like we did for the Johnny documentary. Everybody get in there and watch it together. I guarantee you it'll be emotional. I guarantee you'll see some teary eyes out there because it's such a cool thing to be able to see your story on the big screen, Netflix style, done for just normal people. That is what Heritage Films does. They also do the Year Flicks, which is about the younger kids, right? The 12, 13, 14-year-olds, whatever it may be. Get to know them, Q&A form All these cool questions. What do you rather have? This soda or that soda? What's your favorite kind of food? What's your go-to thing? What's your favorite movie? Like, just get to know your kid on a different level. And then a couple years later, you follow it up with another video, and you get to see their growth and how many things have changed and how many things have stayed the same. It is Heritage Films, the website, yourheritagefilm.com. Yourheritagefilm.com, 713-893-8341, 713-893-8341. When to believe the hype, when not to believe the hype. I think a lot of that hype that we were talking about, preseason aspirations, is based on last year, right? So that is how momentum is built. That is how you go into the offseason. When it comes to A&M, outside of what we talk about here, there isn't the same kind of hype because they went 5-7, and why would they have the hype, right? So that is part of the conversation. But you look at, like, 1 year's success does not equate success the next year. It just doesn't work that way. Because, like for TCU, for instance, and we'll get more into it. It's TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. With TCU, I use the word lucky. That's not fair because I think but it's true. A lot of games in college football, especially in the SEC, not that TCU played in the SEC, but are going to come down just a couple plays. And I used to hear that as a kid, and there's more than a couple. But it's so true. When one score determines the outcome, one possession or one play determines the outcome. How many times did TCU survive or win in this dramatic fashion, right? And they had the quarterback to boot, right? And they were able to get things done because of Max Duggan and how good he was. Hype is built. Now, they don't have a lot of hype going into this year because so many guys went to the NFL and they just look different. But hype is only part of the story, and sometimes guys build a name off of 1 year and it doesn't translate to the next year. And sometimes you see what happened with Caleb Williams, where you build on it and you build on it. And he built on his legacy, which was a question when he went to USC. Is he really going to be as good? He's got the right coach for him. He had the right personnel around him. But he had to live up to the hype that he did in 2021, in 2022, and he obviously won a Heisman Trophy because of it, and that's why most people are predicting that he'll win back-to-back, which it hasn't been done. So the hype, you've got to back it up, and you've got to have the team around you to back it up, and you've got to have the right play callers around you to back it up. That's all part of the conversation. All right, so if you want to be a part of that, you can do that on the text line, 979-693-1150, 979-693-1150. Of course, on the YouTube page, on TexAgs.com. Hello to my friends down on the CW, and, of course, The Zone. All right, let's go to Jared there at the News and Social Center. Jared, I know you've got some text messages and some chats to get into.
Yeah, so one guy that has a lot of hype that's ever going to need to back it up, that'd be Quinn Ewers. So PG Ag and King Oaks asked if we can compare Connor stats to Quinn's. So I have that pulled up for us. And like we said, the past doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to do well. However, looking at Quinn to Connor Wegman's stats last year.
By the way, I don't have my screen in front of me, but I remember Connor not throwing an interception, and I remember Quinn throwing double digits. So continue, sir.
It looks like Quinn had 6 interceptions
so I was
last
wrong,
year.
Sorry.
But Quinn had 58% completion for 2,100 yards, and Connor had 55% completion percentage for 896 yards and 8 touchdowns. And Quinn had 15 touchdowns, right? Quinn had 296 pass attempts, and Connor only 132. So Quinn had a lot more attempts and ability to create plays. And it looked like kind of game to game, it was very similar in their production level. But on top of that, I think everyone just focuses on that first half against Alabama for Quinn. And after that, I feel like most people kind of tuned out. And besides for that first half, it seems like he had I would say mediocre at best type year. But because it's Texas, because people remember them almost beating Bama, that's kind of where a lot of that hype stems from, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I think Quinn Ewers is going to be pretty good. So when I say that, Aggies get mad at me and Captain Obvious. But I also think he gets the benefit, and if he's around next year, we'll find out how much of a benefit he gets, but of playing in the Big 12. I'm sorry. Those numbers are not that impressive to me in a conference where defense is not mandatory. He looked really good against Bama for that half. There's no doubt about that. In the OU game, he was pretty darn good too. 21 of 31. That was actually after the Bama game, if you remember. 21 of 31, 289 yards passing. But then he had some modest numbers after that for a while. He looked really good against Oklahoma State in a loss. When I say looked very good, he threw for 392 yards. He did throw 3 interceptions in that game, and that's part of why he had issues. But after that, he only had one other pick. That was against TCU, in a game that TCU was the dominant team, even though it was a one-score game. Look, he was all right, and he should have a better year. And he threw for a lot of yards against Washington in the bowl game where they lost. But again, the teams he was taking on aren't the teams that A&M was taking on. And I don't like that these two names are constantly, like, it's kind of like Cade Klubnik, Quinn Ewers, Connor Wegman. Those 3 names are kind of tied together because of the hype entering. But, I mean, one plays in the SEC, one plays in the ACC, and one plays in the Big 12. And I'm sorry, that has to be part of the conversation. Quinn does have a good line. He's got good wide receivers. I expect him to put up some big numbers this year. But, Sark being this amazing play caller that we hear about, and maybe he is. I'm not saying he isn't. There's going to be one on this sideline as well. Jared, let's try to get one more text message in before we hit a break.
Yeah, I got one from a 713 number. It says, if LSU loses to FSU and another SEC team, Hogs or Bama, Daniels will be replaced by Nuss, is my guess.
There's a reason Nussmeier didn't leave, in my opinion. He knows that his opportunity is there, that it's not going to take long for him to get a call. Now, that Jaden Daniels has a lot of hype, and he deserves it. He was really good last year. He was. But if they don't get the good fortune like they did in the second half of the year, then there will be a change. By the way, I didn't get into this, but Brian Kelly had some thoughts yesterday on Denver Harris, and I'll kind of reset those in the next segment. But that whole situation, I'm not rooting for anybody's downfall. Let me just go ahead and say that. And it looks like I'll just say it here, it looks like as long as he does what's expected, he can be back, I think, by the weekend or the next week, is what Brian Kelly said. And I hope he gets his life in order, because I don't like seeing, I hope Chris Marshall works out. I do. I hope he does. But it is interesting, and I don't know if it's NIL. I don't know. It's an easy thing to point. But how, issues can happen so quick to each other. The whole A&M thing wasn't that long ago. It's not that long ago. And yet, the whole thing was smoke in Georgia. If you don't learn from your mistakes in the first few months, you're not going to learn from your mistakes. It's kind of like if you cheat on your diet on the first day, you're absolutely cheating on your diet on day 3 and 4, right? If you can't, get reprimanded in one situation, in the next 6 months, not fix your issues, is it ever going to get fixed? Maybe you need that wake-up call. I'm not saying that people don't deserve a second and third chance. I'm just saying it is very interesting to me that, is there empowerment because of money and because of funds to make it to where, yeah, I'll fix it when I need to. So you got to fix it right away. And I just think that whole situation is bizarre, that a bunch of these guys that had problems here have already had problems, and we haven't even gotten to games yet. It's just, 2 are out. Another one could be if he doesn't, follow the right path. 979-693-1150, 979-693-1150 is the number. You can call us or text us up on that line. Open segment coming up. It's TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. But right now, we are talking about Caprock Health System. Highly personalized emergency care there at Caprock System. They've got patients there who benefit from a very unique one-on-one experience. So should your stay require you to be there a little bit longer, they're going to manage every single element of your visit and of all your needs, right? They have a very low doctor-to-nurse-patient ratio, which means their medical team gets to know you and your individual needs with those hotel-quality rooms. It's an awesome place to go when you're in a serious situation where, obviously, you just want to feel better. You want your loved one to feel better immediately, and that's what their goal is when you walk into a Caprock Hospital. You walk in, their sole purpose is to make you feel better. They're 100% locally owned and operated putting the patient first in every decision that they make. Their sole purpose, as I've said, is to make you feel better. 2 state-of-the-art facilities designed for patient healing and family friendliness. You got Caprock Hospital in Bryan and Caprock 24-hour emergency center in College Station. Both have 0 wait time for emergency care, so you'll never have to sit in a crowded waiting room. It is Caprock Hospital in Bryan and Caprock 24-hour emergency center in College Station. Go check them out. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Got a bunch of text messages we want to get into. Billy Lucci says we can call him in 2 minutes to kind of continue our 23 and 23. So if the folks at Bryan Broadcasting want to wait 2 minutes to give him a shout, that'd be great. If you're listening, guys. If not, Nick, send him a message. Let's go back to Jared there at the News and Social Center. I know he's got a topic or two to get into. Plus, he's got some text messages. Matt in San Antonio with one right now and an 817. Go ahead.
Good news is the A&M summer sports drought is coming to a close tonight. Fighting Texas Aggie soccer kicking off their season tonight against number 6 ranked Florida State. Game will be at 7 at Ellis Field. Should be just a great test to open the season up and to end that kind of time of there being no live A&M sports on. So that should be nice.
It'll be nice. I'll be at that game tonight, and they took on Florida State last year in Tallahassee. It'll be an interesting game because Florida State's very highly ranked, number 6 in the country. Coach G's got a really good record in opening games, 16-4-1 in their last 21 openers. But 3 of those losses were to the number 1 team in the country at that time. So that just shows you the kind of schedule he likes to do, the non-conference, get them ready for the grind that is SEC season. So it's a big one. And I'll tell you what, last couple years have not been up to par. Last year they did get to the tournament. They ended up losing in the first round. That being said, they've gotten some transfers that they're excited about. They've built up a little bit of experience because they had a lot of young players. Catherine Calzada, I keep calling her Catherine, but Calzada has been fantastic. Carolyn Calzada, excuse me. She's been fantastic in the back. So what else, Jared?
Oh yeah, we got a text from Matt in San Antonio, which I think brings up an interesting point here. It says in today's college football, I would much rather have a top 10 quarterback with a top 50 defense rather than a top 50 quarterback and a top 10 defense. He's saying the game isn't like how it was when McElroy won the championship at Bama, when he had 6 completions for 58 yards, or the 2011 Bama LSU game that was 9-6. So I guess, David, would you rather have a top 10 quarterback with a top 50 defense or the latter?
I think in today's football, we'll ask Billy this here in a moment. I think in today's football, I would rather have a top 10 quarterback and top 50 defense than the reverse of that, which would be a top 50 quarterback and a top 10 defense. But before we do 23 and 23 with Billy Lucci on the hotline, let's ask him that same question. Jared, I'll let you present it since you have the info right in front of you to ask Billy.
All right, Billy. So in today's college football world, would you rather have a top 10 quarterback with a top 50 defense or have a top 50 quarterback with a top 10 defense?
Top 10 quarterback, top 50 defense, or a top 10 defense with a top 50 quarterback?
Correct.
Yes.
I think I'd go with the top 10 quarterback. Here's why I say that. You went top 50, and that concerned me. If you would have gone top 25, then I probably would have gone with the defense. Said, look, if I had a top 25 quarterback with a top 10 defense, I got a good chance to win a championship. When you said top 50, you're basically saying there's a chance that this guy is better than roughly only half the quarterbacks in college football. So I would go with the QB in that regard. Because if you have a top 10 quarterback, you probably have, either a Heisman contender or somebody just outside of Heisman contention. And that guy could win you a lot of football games.
Well, I mean, Billy, we kind of went through it with OB earlier where if you were a top 10 quarterback in college football, more often than not always, more often than not, you're playing in at least a New Year's Six Bowl.
Yeah, at a premier program, yes, right? Like, at the right program, the answer is yes. You combine that, but I don't know. It's a good question because if your defense is ranked 43rd, your good quarterback's going to lose a lot of games. I mean, we watched Johnny speak. We've been talking a lot about Johnny lately. We watched Johnny Manziel and Mike Evans, and I think even in that second season there were at least two. No, by then I think Fetty was on there, so you still had 3 first-round O-linemen. I watched them lose 49-42 to Bama. I watched them lose for both teams were in the 40s to Auburn, and then then there's a bad game or two that are inevitable in this sport. So I do think you better have a defense that's a lot better. I'm not underselling defense, but man, having that elite quarterback will win you a lot of games. But you better have a defense that I think is in the top 30. That's why it's such a good question, because my God, look at USC last year. What happened with them? They thought they were rolling. They had the best quarterback in football, but they did not have a defense even remotely close to top 30. The better question is, can A&M have a top 10 quarterback? Can A&M have a top 10 quarterback and a top 30 defense this year? My question would be, can they have a top 20 in both? And I think the answer is, why not?
Billy, if they had both, again, you can't use one metric to give you an answer, but does that equate 10-win team basically?
Yeah, I think so. I think anybody that would have that combination in any conference would be a threat to be a top 10. Would likely be a top 10 team, and like you said, playing in that New Year's Six bowl game. And to me, and I know that this is not the only goal for Aggie football, but I do believe that the goal for me this year, what I would call, without question, no matter how you got there, a successful season would be a New Year's Six bowl. Even if they got into one at 9-3, which isn't as common, but it happens. And if they did, I would still call that a successful season without question. I mean, again, the path to 9, the goal is not 9-3, but the path to 9-3 is going to include some nice wins in there, and maybe even a gigantic win. You could get 9-3 and beat Bama and lose 3 others with that schedule. So, or it means a really hot start that gets everyone's attention, and then maybe level off. But 9-3 plus a bowl win is a massive breakthrough, not breakthrough, but bounce back for the program, where you go, okay, this thing's back on track. You're returning a ton of guys. They could have something special brewing for 24. So getting there is the hard part. But I do think, I go back to David, kind of my crutch. Your crutch is, you always say, I have to see it. Yeah, they have to prove it to me. They have to prove it to me. I have to see it. But not just about A&M, but every team we talk about. My thing, or players or whatever, my crutch is this whole, I always say this, we talk too much about A&M, and we look at them through a different lens than we do other programs. And as a result, we're not putting them under the same microscope. So all these teams that we look at and we worry about, that could be a loss. The Miami, the Auburn, the Arkansas, the South Carolina, Tennessee. And I think, y'all do a good job of breaking it down. And Tennessee's got these issues. South Carolina, we have to be careful and make sure we do that. Ole Miss, man, that's going to be really tough on the road. Of course it is. But guess what? They're going to lose at home to some teams. Why not it be A&M? That football team will lose games in Oxford this year because they have deficiencies, because they have flaws. Same can be said for everyone, including LSU and Alabama this year. So we have to remember that when we're really kind of trying to crack down and figure out what's going to make A&M lose games. And sometimes say, what's going to make A&M win games as opposed to what's going to make Ole Miss lose 5 games this year? What's going to make Mississippi State? Well, I mean, are we really just glossing over that Mike Leach is no longer the head coach there? And I wish we didn't say that. I wish that wasn't true, because I wish Coach Leach was still here in the SEC and with us to, entertain us and make college football more fun, but he's not. So when you're talking about breaking down a game, and Arnett's coaching for the first time, do we really think that they're above going on the road to College Station, Texas, and losing? So there's a ton of that we have to break down in these games where we. And with that said, I do think 9-3 is very attainable, and I think it's a reasonable expectation for this team. I don't think you should sit here and look at all the talent they have and the experience and say, yeah, this is probably an 8-4 team. I realize it could be, and I realize that's about where that over-under is sitting. But my expectation is I think they're going to go out and win 9 and win a bowl or surprise everyone and do better than that.
Billy, I'll make a quick comment about this before we talk about Moose, but I saw you yesterday on Outkick, and the thing that I saw was you wearing sunglasses, and I was like, is he really wearing sunglasses in an interview? I went back to watch it, and now I understand why. I'm giving you credit. Like, I get it. You were looking into the sun, and you even made a joke about it. So now but when I first saw it, all I saw was the glasses.
Well, you have to make a joke about it, because of this very thing happening. Somebody going, oh, is Lucci wearing sunglasses inside? I was in a hurry. I had to find a place. I had to find a place to be, kind of like right now, where I could do that. And they were like, well, they said the bosses they don't really prefer people doing it in cars. That's probably for driving purposes. I would have been parked, but I didn't want to dispute it. So I got out, hopped into a hotel I knew that had a big sizable lobby where it would be a craziness for me to be fucking loud on FaceTime, and sat down, and there's just this giant window with the sun coming at me. So,
well, I saw it. I stopped. I watched, and I was like, oh, I get it now. All right, time to do a little 23 and 23. The Charge Apparel, Aggie owned and operated premier polos, tees made in the USA. 12% of total sales donated to organizations supporting veterans and mental health initiatives. You can visit them at chargeapparel.com or find them on Instagram on the Charge Apparel and the Charge brand. All right, Billy, it's Moose Muhammad. I'll let you take it away since we're kind of running out of time.
Yeah, no, I think, what number do you have him at?
Number 7.
Yeah, Moose, when you talk about proven commodities, there's Moose Muhammad. And coming off the game he had against LSU to end that season and to end their hopes of a playoff run, it's an incredible way to end the year. I love guys that go into an off season with momentum. I think there's a lot of talent at that wide receiver position. You got guys like Noah Thomas and Jade Walker factoring into the mix now. It's competitive, and it'll be competitive for Moose too. But I think there are guys that you want in football games, and you want going up and competing to catch the football when it's in the air, and you want to make plays against SEC-level competition, and you think about players on this roster, not just receivers, and Moose Muhammad is on a very short list in terms of guys that are proven dogs out there. You see him make big plays in Tuscaloosa against Alabama, obviously against LSU, not just this year, but even the year before in a close loss. He seems to step up and play really well against the best. And I think he probably, sometimes this is harder to do. I think he plays better than he practices. And that's one of those things where it's hard early on in the career because it's harder to kind of get your chance out there. And then when you do, you see what he can do in a game. So now they know when Moose Muhammad goes out there under the lights on a Saturday night and that ball snaps, he's one of your best hopes of making a big play or turning a short catch into a touchdown or, making a spectacular play in the end zone or really making one of those plays. I think he and Evan Stewart are sensational at it that really will break the opposing defense's will. If you can line up, be physical, and run, and then take shots at guys like number 7, and he can go make some of the catches he makes. If you go back and watch that LSU game last year, Moose Muhammad broke LSU's will. That defense felt like, man, even when we're covering these guys, we can't stop them. Evan Stewart almost did that against Bama, and Moose made a couple big catches in that one as well. you keep doing that, and you frustrate secondaries, you frustrate defenses. They stop you on first and second down, and then Moose Muhammad goes up and makes a third down contested catch. The dude is extremely competitive on the football field, and I love guys that will fight for the football.
Billy, we got to drop it right there, man.
Why? It's 9:50, Louie, I called you.
So
what's with these new times, Nuño?
Well, we got to break it because we have a short segment coming up before the hour break. Got to go. Talk to you later. Later. Sorry, Billy. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We'll come back with one short segment. Bye. Since I've been at TexAgs, this will be my shortest segment ever. Around College Football was brought to you by Milliken Reserve, a College Station community featuring homes, trails, farms, and wide open spaces with a mission to build a healthy community around nature. Take part in the Milliken Reserve community with a Conservancy membership. Learn more at millikenreserve.com. So this is what we have coming up. Jim Nagy, Senior Bowl, the executive director, he's going to join us. He's got his eyes on a couple Aggies, so we'll talk about that. And then the show with the most knowledge, never. It's the Fan Show, brought to you by Gerard Construction. That, your text messages, your phone calls, and your high fives. It's TexAgs Radio. And we're back. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Appreciate everybody listening in this morning. If you have any thoughts, questions, concerns, I don't know about concerns. You can keep those to yourself. You can text us on the text line 979-693-1150. So in Nashville a few weeks back, I've known about this guy for a long time from my old days working with Lance and John in Houston. And I think LZ's good friends with our next guest. But I got to hang out with him for a little bit. You know, my version of hanging out is not very long, right? Like it's literally I'm there till about 10 o'clock and then I'm out. But let's talk a little bit about the Reese's Senior Bowl. Jim Nagy, who's the executive director of the Reese's Senior Bowl, the premier showcase of all All-Star games, joining us here on TexAgs with the Aggie football helmet right behind him. Jim, well played, my friend. How are you?
Good, man. Good to be on. Yeah, it's nice. We've got about every helmet in college football, so it makes it easy to stage an interview.
Well, that's good stuff, man. So first off, 75th, right? This is going to be this is a huge year for the Senior Bowl. Just talk a little bit about it. It's going to be an amazing celebration.
Yeah, really big year for us. Obviously, you know, we picked a 50th anniversary team 25 years ago, and so here's 75, and we've been really excited about. We're going to do a fan vote for the team, really celebrate the great history of our game. And really the coolest part was last week. Well, I guess just a couple of days ago, we announced a partnership with the NFLPA. And they're going to come in and sponsor the 75th anniversary celebration, which is going to allow us to get all those guys back here, right? I mean, it would have been cool to name a team, but to get 40 guys back to Mobile will be awesome. You know, I would assume Von Miller is going to be a part of that team. But yeah, it's going to be players from the last 25 years, guys that played in the NFL from 98 to 23. So we're talking about, that'll include Dan Marino. He kind of squeaks in under those parameters at quarterback. You know, receivers will be Torrey Holt and Hines Ward and Terrell Owens, and running backs will be Curtis Martin and Sean Alexander and LaDainian Tomlinson. So it'll be a really cool part to game week. We'll have a big gala on Friday night. Those guys will be at the game on Saturday. So it should be fun.
Well, hopefully TexAgs can send us out there for that. That'd be fun to be a part of. What goes into you set that criteria, but what goes into selecting the players for the game itself? Like, and how close are we to the watch list? I gotta assume it's coming up soon.
Yeah, watch list is next week. We're coming up on it. You know, all we've tried to do over the last, I guess I'm going on my 6th year here. We try to build this thing out as close as we can to an NFL scouting department. Obviously, don't have a $1 billion owner and budget, but what we do every year is we hire guys that get let go in the NFL, guys that I've been familiar with and cross paths with on the road, and sometimes good friends with, for the National Football League. And this year we've got 11 guys with over 200 years of NFL experience. I just got back late last night from Texas. I did a 3-day swing, hit 7 practices in just a little over 2 days. Was in College Station a couple days ago. I think that was on Monday, first day we got there. But yeah, so we try to go out and see as many players as we can at games. We'll be at, 10, 12, 13 games on the weekends. See these guys, watch all their tape and evaluate them, as if we were working for an NFL team. And really just try to strip all the politics out of it. I mean, obviously we take feedback from coaches because that's valuable information. That's why it's good to get with Jimbo the other day. But the best thing you can do is put your eyes on these players and watch them and evaluate them properly. So that's our process. We will, we'll wrap that up later in the fall and start the invites probably sometime in November. And the goal is to get all the players drafted. So we'll see. We're on a pretty good run these last 3 years. We've had over 100 guys picked each of the last 3 years, which has been like 40% of the last 3 drafts. So we're excited. We're excited to get going. We're excited to launch the watch list next week.
So I don't expect you to be an FBI body language interpreter, but just from your talking to Jimbo, what's the vibe? What'd you feel about the way he sees this particular team?
Yeah, he's excited about the team. Not to share too much, but he is excited about the team. I mean, he was really positive. We kind of went through all the position groups, really all the guys eligible for the Senior Bowl. But he couldn't help himself from commenting on some of the young guys in each position group as well. So I feel like we got a pretty good rundown. One of the guys on our staff is Walter Julep. Walter is the senior scout of all scouts right now in the NFL. We were lucky enough to get him here last year. He was with the Cowboys for over 30 years. He scouted for every coach in Dallas Cowboys history. So he's really he's like an icon, legend in the scouting community. And so he was there with me, and he and Jimbo are tight. So we had a good talk before practice, and he's really excited, and he has reason to be. I mean, I tell people sometimes when you eyeball a football team, usually if they look good, they play good, and that's a good looking Texas A&M football team. You
said something there that caught my attention. So Jimbo mentioned some of the young guys, right? So when you go and visit these schools, is that part of the future evaluations? Like you're seeing a junior who next year is going to be a senior, and is that, or is it focused 100% on the seniors?
Mostly focused on the seniors, man. I'm not going to lie. There's too many seniors. If you're going to do this the right way, you owe it to the seniors to get them right. So I can't let my focus wander too far. But of course, like Jimbo did point out a true freshman. I won't say which one, and it was hard not to watch him a little bit when they were going through individual period. But yeah, man, there's so many seniors out there, and we're going to have over 600 players on the watch list, which is a huge number for us. Last year we were at 483, 484, something like that. But it's a bigger class this year numbers wise. So 600 is a ton. We're trying to get down to 130 for our game. So yes, if there's a really good underclassman, you'll let your eye wander a little bit, but not too much.
Talking to Jim Nagy here on TexAgs Radio. All right, so I'm gonna throw you a couple names that I wouldn't be surprised if they make the list. One guy you and I actually talked about a little bit, just how of a physical presence he looks like, McKinley Jackson. When you're going around and seeing these guys, he's got real pro potential, doesn't he? High pro potential.
Yeah, absolutely. No, he's near the top of our board right now at defensive tackle. He's quick and explosive enough to play 3 technique, and he's got this body type, this big I compare. He looks like a jumbo fullback. I mean, this guy is like a ball of muscle, and he can play the nose spot. So he's got some versatility inside, and the coolest thing about his upside is his ability to get after the quarterback. And it doesn't always show up on paper. You look at the stats; they're not eye-popping, but man, you put on the tape, and he's a disruptive force. So, and he's right up from the road. He's from Lucedale, Mississippi, which is about a half hour from Mobile here, right up the road. He's been to a bunch of Senior Bowls. I think he said the last one he went to was when Dak Prescott played in it. But so yeah, he's the guy we're gonna be focused on. Really, really good player. I expect him to have a monster year for the Ags.
We expect that as well. One guy that we're focusing in on the show today is Moose Muhammad. The ability to separate, the ability to make one-handed catches. Just your thoughts on what you've seen from Moose.
NFL talent, there's no doubt. Right now he's in a really good competition for touches in that room. Anaya Smith, obviously another senior. They've got some really talented juniors. I know the staff there is excited about this transfer they got from Grand Valley State, the Division II school in Michigan, who he certainly looks the part watching him out of practice. But so Moose is in competition. I hope he's got his head on straight and ready to compete this year, because you're right. I mean, it's the things that stick out. He's got separation quickness. He's strong with the ball in his hands, and he's got excellent hands. I mean, this dude can catch anything you throw at him. So he should be a draftable player. He should get drafted. So hope he has a productive year. We liked his junior tape enough to post something about him on social media earlier in the spring. Just going into the year, we hope his head's on right and he's productive for him, because he certainly should play at the next level.
Jim, another name you mentioned there, Anaya Smith, coming back from injury. A Swiss Army knife, can be used in multiple ways. How big of a year is this for him if he has these NFL aspirations?
Yeah, it's a big year coming off the injury. Kind of he's got to prove that he's back. And again, but teams understand, man. Sometimes from these major injuries, you're not fully back in year one. You're more fully back in year two. But it's going to be good to see him out there. I mean, again, I saw him at SEC Media Days, and seeing him out on the field, you forget he's not a real big guy, man. But he plays bigger than that. That's what you like about him. He's sturdy. He's got substance to him. He doesn't get knocked around. He's strong with the ball. He's got return value, which is going to help him. He's got some, like you said, Swiss Army knife versatility in the backfield. So he's kind of a playmaker. You don't want to he's going to be in the slot. Obviously, he's going to be a slot. He's going to be a running back, gadget guy. But we're trying to bring guys that make plays. Everyone's looking for kind of the next Debo. I think that's a high bar. I hate comparing guys to Debo, who we had here in the game, but that kind of skill set, that kind of usage. So yeah, big year for Anais. We're excited to see him.
I want to ask you about the quarterback class this year, because I feel like in the last few years, every year it gets a little bit better. And this year, there are some big names in this.
It's super deep, and I'll say that. We're starting with a lot more names than we usually do at this point going into the year. After we've seen them at Manning camp and done all the, the last, I mean, usually it's 1 year at tape work for some of these guys they've been on the radar for a couple of years now. And there's a bunch of guys that decided to go back. I mean, we invited two guys last year. Bo Nix at Oregon and Keaton Slovis, who was at Pitt and is now at BYU. Those guys got invites last year, and then you got guys like Sam Hartman going from Wake Forest to Notre Dame, and Brennan Armstrong going from Virginia to North Carolina State, and Devin Leary going from North Carolina State to Kentucky. So lots of moving parts, a lot. It's going to be good to see guys in new offenses, but it's really wide open. I mean, it really is beyond Bo Nix. It's pretty wide open for those other spots. Like I said, we usually have about 10 or 15 guys realistically that have a chance. And I would say this year that number is probably 20 to 25, depending how it all shakes out.
Can you kind of remind us of some of the bigger names the last couple of years that have come through the Senior Bowl, especially quarterback? I mean, I remember, I think Josh Allen was a part of that same class with Justin Herbert. Like there's some names that were nice, and that kind of helped platoon where they are now.
Yeah, so it was Josh was the year before I got here. My first year, I think Justin Herbert was my first year, I believe. Jalen Hurts, they were on the same team actually down here. Wow. That's quite a quarterback depth chart. So yeah, we've had some good ones. We had a run of 7 straight years with a first-round quarterback that got snapped last year. Last year's quarterback class, it was good up top with all those juniors, Anthony Richardson and Bryce Young and CJ Stroud and those guys. But the senior class, is more day 3 guys. So Jake Haener from Fresno State, Clayton Tune from there in the state at Houston. But it just wasn't a great senior group. So we're excited about this year's class. There's going to be some guys that can rise up and get into that, day 1, day 2 range. So we'll see. I think, the 2 guys for us last year that really did rise from day 3 to day 2 over the course of last year were Bo Nix and Hendon Hooker from Tennessee. And Hendon actually ended up spending the week down here. He was injured, but went through the week and ended up going in the 3rd round to Detroit. So hopefully we can get back on track and get that first round thing going again.
Jim, what is it like to have these guys come before they become household names, and then they become Senior Bowl alum, and they do become household names?
I mean, it's a cool feeling just because you get to know these guys a little bit. Some of them better than others, really. I mean, you got a roster of 120, 130 guys. I try to make a point of it every year, and I've got a roster in my back pocket, and I check them off as I get a sit down. I try to sit down with every guy by the end of the week, but it's hard. But no, it's always cool to see. That's why draft day is so much fun. I mean, people ask me, do I miss working in the NFL? And I do. I usually miss it around draft time. I miss the lead up. I miss the strategy. I miss draft meetings in April. But what's really cool is draft day. Rather than working for a team and really having like 7 picks to get excited about, we sit here in the office and watch our guys go off. And like I said, we've had, triple digits each of the last 3 years. So you're like getting excited for a new guy every 5-10 minutes, just because, I mean, they're realizing their dreams. They've all worked their butts off. I mean, you guys see how hard those guys work, and Jimbo and the staff work those guys. I mean, draft day is kind of the culmination of the whole thing. And then to see him go on and become pros. And like Jalen Hurts is a great example. He was a guy that, when he was here in Mobile at the opening press conference, someone asked me if we were planning on playing Jalen at running back that year. And I was like, no, so to see him have the success he had and runner up for MVP and play great in the Super Bowl and just prove all the doubters wrong. It's awesome. It's a lot of fun.
Probably an unfair question, but what's the biggest difference working in NFL scouting department and working for the Senior Bowl Because at the end of the day, you're still evaluating talent. That's what you're doing, right?
Yeah. This job has a lot more. There's a lot more to it. I'll say the biggest difference is travel, man. Like I've said this before on another podcast. Like what we do and what everyone else on social media and in the web do, they evaluate, right? Like we're not. Scouting is putting in the grind. Scouting is doing what we did this week, hitting 7 schools in 2 days. I mean, those guys, people don't understand what a hard lifestyle that is. That's a big reason why I took this job. It was really for my family. I had a son that was getting ready to go into high school and play high school football and basketball. And when you're in the league, man, you miss a lot of stuff. Those guys it's a lot of sacrifice. It's a lot of grind. You're on the road 200 nights a year. So hats off to those guys. Those guys are the scouts, man. We're evaluators. We watch tape and we evaluate players. But to me, that's the biggest part is I certainly have different things on my plate with the media stuff and, just managing an office and managing a budget, things I've never had to do. And social media, obviously, I never did anything on social media working in the NFL. So there's different layers to it. But those guys put in the grind, man. I had so much respect for that profession and what everyone in the NFL has to put into doing what they do, man. Just ultimate respect.
Jim, one of the things that stuck to me was that you try to meet every player that's there. How important is it for you to have smaller schools represented there at the Reese's Senior Bowl?
Well, that's been part of the game's history, man, is some of the great small school players going back to like Michael Strahan at Texas Southern, right? Some of our greatest players, the Walter Paytons, and even more recently with like Shaquille Leonard, the All-Pro linebacker for the Indianapolis Colts, and Teron Armstead, the great left tackle down in Miami now. Or is he in New Orleans now? Yeah, I'm trying to remember where Armstead is, but there's so many great players. And that's really where I'm a little scared where the portal's going. Selfishly for a game like us is that's been part of our history, is finding those small school players and bringing them here. The Christian Watsons from North Dakota State. It seems like we've got a handful of guys that go in that top 100 every year, and that might be going away a little bit. Like right now, if we had to pick a roster based off the tape we've seen this summer, there would not be a lot of small school representation in this year's game, just because a lot of these guys, their senior year, are trying to transfer up, whether it be to a Group of 5 school or in some cases a Power 5 school to prove themselves. So that could hurt. That could hurt us. We love those small school guys, man. They really kind of drive the narrative of our week. So we'll see. We hope it continues though.
Last thing for you, and this is not new news now. You've done it for a couple of years, but you all changed kind of the landscape of how you pick your coaches, correct? Kind of let us understand, for those who haven't really seen the coaches now, it's what an NFL coach picks one of his guys to do it. Is that kind of, am I saying that correctly?
So no, we had the full coaching staffs for 73 years, and that was a really cool part of our heritage as well, just bringing those guys down. The full staffs, having the full teams down here. I thought it was really a great mechanism for parity in the league. It's like, back in the day, like way back 25, 30 years ago, the teams that coached the Senior Bowl were the ones that lost in the conference championship games. To me, that really wasn't fair. But when you start at the top of the draft order and you work your way down and try to pick those teams to coach our game, and that's an incentive, man. It helps. You spend a full week with these guys behind the scenes in meeting rooms. It's helpful. So I was a big proponent of that. The league office, decided to go in a different direction. And you know what? It ended up being a great thing for us last year. We loved it. We had 16 different teams represented on our staff. It was all the non-playoff teams, and some teams had multiple coaches. So it's really like a coach up format. So we'll get 2 coordinators from the league, and we'll make them the head coaches. Then we'll get some position coaches and make them coordinators. So everyone's really coaching up a level. And it's really to promote, the guys. And so they get a great platform. They get the NFL Network is down here. ESPN's down here doing all our practices and everything. And obviously all 32 teams, I think we credentialed over 900 NFL people that last year. I mean, just the amount of guys that got jobs coming out of our game week last year. I think we had 7, 8, 9 guys between our game and the draft that went to other places and got promotions at other places because, GMs and personnel directors and head coaches that were down here saw them in action and saw them doing their thing. So, I think the NFL identified last year what happened here in Mobile is a great thing. And now all the All-Star games are having this similar format. So, it ended up being a really good thing for us.
Jim, I really appreciate it. I know we chatted about getting you on the show soon, so thank you for making some time. Let's do it again.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Good luck this year.
Thank
Go
you.
Ags.
Appreciate you. Jim Nagy there. executive director of the Reese's Senior Bowl, senior executive director. Appreciate his time. The premier showcase of all All-Star games during college football. Let's hit a break. We will come back with some open thoughts or an open segment with some thoughts, some text messages on the text line, 979-693-1150. Before we do that, let's talk about the Charge Apparel. Love those dudes. Good guys over there. Tucker, awesome. Travis, awesome. Just really good dudes who went to A&M, commissioned into the U.S. Army, and Travis commissioned to the Air Force there. And after separating from the military, they formed the Charge Apparel as a way to continue to serve our country through veteran nonprofit support, right? And these are premier polos, guys. These are awesome. It's the Charge Apparel is an Aggie-owned, purpose-driven apparel brand that really focuses on the veterans and mental health. 12% of total sales go to organizations that support U.S. veterans and mental health initiatives. Additionally, all their premier polos and tees are made right here in the United States. They have the best brands, too. I mean, the best fabric, I should say. It's lightweight, slightly tailored fit through the chest and the arms, designed to make you look and feel your absolute best. They've certainly done that. And the Charge Apparel is a Texas-based company, and they operate out of in Austin. So, they are behind enemy lines out there. But let me tell you right now, they're all about the maroon and white out here. One of their owners is from College Station, and both owners graduated from Texas A&M in 2014. Check out the website, thechargeapparel.com. thechargeapparel.com, or find them on Instagram at thechargeapparel or on Twitter, thechargebrand. Jamming today, I know one of the text messages mentioned that from a 432. It is TexAgs Radio. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We are here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. And by the way, guys, let me go ahead and just tell you right now, the fan show's coming up, so get ready for some analysis. Paralysis by analysis, I think that's the term used as well. Let's go to the News and Social Center. Jared is there. Jared, I know we got some text messages. I know we got some chat on the YouTube page, and I know you got some thoughts for us, buddy.
Yeah, so I got some thoughts here. The other night, I was just hanging out with some friends, and we had the TV on. Happened to be Inside College Football on CBS, and I was in the middle of playing a poker round, just kind of
not even paying attention, right?
Deciding what I was going to do, and then something piqued my interest because I heard Danny Cannell, kind of out of left field, it got my attention. It says A&M is going to win the SEC West.
What? Whoa. Danny Cannell, who since I've been here, has not said a positive thing about A&M at all. Unfortunately, some of the things have been right. But that being said, he hasn't said, you're saying that Danny Cannell, not another one, not Danny Cannell or Danny Chanel. Danny Cannell said something positive about A&M winning the SEC West.
Yeah, he was also really high on Cade Klubnik, which I know I was looking some stuff on Twitter after just to kind of figure out more about him. And some people were trying to say that he's a big guy that will say things on radio just to get words going. I don't know. But regardless of the fact,
Cade Klubnik's going to be really good, I think. I believe that hype.
Regardless, he predicted A&M to win the SEC West, which I don't know. I as an A&M fan, as a student, that would be incredible.
Yeah, of course. So this is my opinion. I don't know Danny at all. I actually like his radio show. I listen in the morning with Dusty. I think they do really good work. I sometimes catch the podcast. I don't necessarily agree with him often with his takes. A lot of his takes, I feel, and look, I don't know the guy. Seems like a really nice guy. But sometimes I believe talk show hosts, and I'm not one of these guys, and maybe I should be a little bit more, but I'm not, have these takes for the interaction. Like, he's not as big on the SEC. He thinks it's too much hype for the SEC, even though, how many? 15 out of the last 17 national championships have come from the SEC. So there is that, right? I personally don't like to say things for effect. I like to say things that I think. Hotline's ringing, guys, by the way. I like to say things that I've tried to think about, and I try to formulate an opinion on that. Phone line, guys. Phone line.
But formulating an opinion and speaking well doesn't always get you a lot of clicks on social media.
No. But, like, if that's why you're doing it, like,
you're not an analyst at that point, in a way.
Well,
you're
you're
an influencer.
So, like Skip Bayless, who's the easy one to go to, he says things for effect. Often. Yes. Right? For effect. I mean, I'm sure we all do a little bit of say things for effect, right? I'm sure we all do. But that being said, that's not my thing.
You got to at least believe it. That's my big thing. Like, if you say it for effect, whatever, but as long as you got to genuinely believe that it's true, at least, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, people, I don't know. I'm a listener and a consumer of product. If I think somebody's just saying stuff for effect, I'm probably not going to watch him, right? I want someone to be genuine. The way I consume, I want that dude that seems like really nice on the radio or on the podcast, on the TV show, that seems like you go up to him, be able to go up to him and not have somebody completely different. I want who you are on air to be who you are off air. And I don't want you to create, and I'm not saying that Danny Cannell does this, by the way. I just think sometimes some of his takes are, I don't know if for effect is the right way to say it. Maybe he probably does believe a lot what he says. Sometimes we believe things through the lens of how we've seen it. And if you've been in the ACC this whole time at a proud program and you love what they do and you're seeing this other conference just dominate and your rivals dominate and this and that, it can color the way you look at that group, right? Yeah. And for me, I just, I don't see it that way.
Yeah, I got a couple other things for you. ESPN, they dropped their top 100 players list. There was one Aggie included. Can you guess who it was?
Yeah, we talked about, actually, believe it or not, yesterday. The Swiss Army knife that we talked to Jim Nagy about just a moment ago. That guy would be, I believe, number 67.
That's right.
Anaya Smith.
Got it.
Look at that. Look at the memory, the recall, the Olin Buchanan mind that I have.
That senior brain coming in. And then we had the top 50 newcomer in college football by ESPN as well. They had Ruben Owens listed. So
got to be on there. Got to be on there for sure. All right, let's do this. The fan show guys are giving me a mean look. Let's read one text message or two, and then we'll hit a break.
We have Dan at 76 said, David Travis is a fellow Squadron 2 classmate of my son's.
Oh, right, cool. Talking about the Charge Apparel guys. All
yes.
right, good stuff there, Dan. And then what else do we have in here? I think we got to that one already. All right, let's hit a break. We'll come back with, wow, Hunter Shurtleff is here. Kelly Adams is here. Matt Browning's here. The whole crew is here. I wonder if they drove in together on a Caldwell Country Chevrolet vehicle. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe they did, so I can segue. Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com. When you go to Caldwell Country Chevrolet, you can expect a couple things. You can expect great customer service, great price on a new vehicle, and a great trade-in. And at the end of the day, in that, what you want, like you want the car that you want the car that fits your family needs, and you want it at the right price, at the right time, with excellent customer service. And if you get all that at Caldwell Country Chevrolet, why would you go anywhere else? Highly suggest you start off on the website to see the inventory that they have, which changes all the time, right? Because they're bringing in vehicles a lot. You start the search at CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com. And then you go in person. Now, it's not a far drive, right? I've told you before, 15 minutes, Brian to Caldwell. Gabe wrote that line, I believe. I think he drives faster than I do. 15 minutes, Brian to Caldwell, short conversation away. But you'll see the difference when you step on the lot and do business with our friends there at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com. Welcome back, friends. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Time for the fan show presented by Girard Construction. I believe they're custom home builders for the
Brazos Valley
since 2002. They don't just build homes; they build
relationships.
Learn more at girard-construction.com. He's Kelly Adams. He's Hunter Shurtleff and Matt Browning. My friends, how are you guys?
Yo, what's up, bud?
Hey guys, been a minute for you.
It's been a minute. Had some time off. Had some work stuff. I'm
back.
back. You know we're getting close to
in the process.
You know we're getting close to football season when Hunter starts showing up. He's wearing the visor.
Not only just showing up, he was proactive.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, he told me, these are the days I'm available. Let's go.
Let's go. That's what I'm talking about.
Sneaking back to Colorado next week just for a few days, but then game week I'm back.
You're back.
If you'll have me.
Of course. Yeah. Of course. But let's start with what's on your mind. And since you haven't been here recently, you started off.
Well, here's the deal. I'm pretty positive about this season coming up. But some people aren't, right? Mm-hmm. And we kind of touched on this last time. And this morning, I'm at the gym, but I've got you on YouTube, right? And the chat people are coming up.
Okay.
And there's some guy on there, I'm not going to say who it was. He's already talking about, well, if this doesn't work out, can we get Elko?
I responded to him.
It is August, 17th?
Yes.
It is August 17th. You ought to have some optimism, right? So far we've had, knock on it, with some good injury reports, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the optimism I have for Jimbo and this team, I think for the first time since he's been here, right, we have a legit P5 SEC quarterback, right? Yeah. And that's what makes the world go around in college football. If you don't have that guy, and there are a few exceptions, we can go through the years. If you don't have that guy, you're not gonna win a bunch of games.
Yep.
No. If that guy's got to stay healthy, and I think Connor Wigman's it. I get what the propaganda we're getting. I think it's a guys on this quarterback deal. I've seen enough just in the Ole Miss and LSU games that he's the guy, right? But to build around that gives me a lot of optimism.
I like that.
And I went to the Sunday practice. What was it? It was working on almost 2 weeks ago. That D-line, those guys are just dudes. I mean, they are legit specimens.
They look different, don't
Yeah.
they? Yeah, they look different. Yeah.
To your point, if you can't be positive in August, you're not going to be positive all year. It only gets less positive as the year goes along, usually. Because in August, you're 12-0 and going to win the national championship, right?
Yeah.
Positive and realistic. And I think the reasons most of us are positive is because, and I use this line a lot, Jimbo looked in the mirror and has made some changes. And that's not just the offense. Culture is a bigger deal this year. You've got a new play caller who's creative, who's done it at a high level for a long time. And I'm sorry, the youth movement, the growth, has to count for something. Year 2 of your coordinator, your defensive coordinator, and year 2 of your offensive line coach has to matter for something. There are reasons that we are thinking that 9-3, 10-2, 11-1 are all possible.
I mean, and the beauty of it is that we hit rock bottom last year, so we can only go up.
Right.
So optimism needs to be. But a guy like that is the kind of guy that does this every year. He is that pessimist that's like, we suck. We're awful. You know, those guys. You hear those guys all the time.
If we don't have 22 first-team All-Americans, we're terrible.
Do what?
If we don't have 22 first-team All-Americans, then we're terrible.
I mean,
the whole team was first-team All-SEC, right?
I'm taking all comers on those pessimists too. When they say that, I'm going, set your over and under right now, and I'm taking the over. You set the number, and I will take that bet.
What's your number?
I mean, if you told me 8.5, obviously I'm taking the over. 9, I'm gonna be a little squirrely, but I'm still taking the over. Well, that's not right. That's not pessimistic. These guys are.
No, I agree.
I
think 9.5 is a legit number to set because I think 9 and 10 wins is totally possible, and I don't think that's being negative.
But I think we all have a little BAS that doesn't allow us to necessarily go there, right? Is that fair? Like, there's a little bit there's always that game,
especially after last year.
Yeah, I have the little Animal House devil on my shoulder saying, at Miami, September's a tough month. You know, Arkansas, Auburn.
Yeah.
Coming up, Alabama, back-to-back Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly, what's on your mind?
The Texas Rangers are still in first place.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
Always, guys. Always. I know they lost yesterday.
They did.
And it's going to happen. Rangers made up a game to stay even with where they were 2 weeks ago.
You see this oblong ball here on our
We'll
table?
get there.
Hey, by the way, I not because I researched Ranger stuff, but I saw a tweet that showed their schedule for the remainder of the way.
Mm-hmm.
They do get the A's again.
Thankfully. I love that.
But you've got the Mariners a bunch. You've got a lot of tough games ahead.
Well, and at the end of the day, it's a balanced schedule. So everybody in the entire league plays everybody else the same number of times that everybody else plays them. So we're not playing extra games against the division. No. So it's just ours lucked out where we get the hard games at the end. Is what it is.
How about them Packers?
Go Packers. Love, it's coming along quite well. The quarterback, he's coming along, I've heard.
All right, Matt Browning, what's on your mind?
All right, so mine's kind of in line with Hunter's and what y'all talked about earlier about Danny Cannell and all that. Is it's so interesting. I find this fascinating, actually. The differences in the stretches of where we're going to end up. I don't know if I've ever seen a team that's been this. Like I watched a whole bunch of stuff yesterday. I was listening to a whole bunch of stuff nationally on what they think A&M is going to do this year. And it's so funny to see you hear them. I mean, on either end of the spectrum. I mean, I watched a guy yesterday whose bold take was Jimbo will be fired, and we're going to go, 5-7 or 6-6, and Jimbo's gone, and we're starting 2024 with the new coaching staff. Then and then Danny Cannell, the absolute hater of haters, says we're going to win the West.
If Danny Cannell thinks we can win the West, then we can win the national title.
Yeah. So So it's just, and it's not just those. It's across the board. Hearing people, some think we're going to be really good, some think we're going to be bad. It's wild. I've just never seen that big of a stretch between the two possible endings, right? I mean, in odds are just because of 5-7 and new offensive scheme and still some young guys, and the majority of our best players are still underclassmen. It's probably somewhere in the middle. Odds are it'd probably be somewhere in the middle. I'm hoping it's the Danny Cannell idea, but it's just wild to think about how drastically different people see us across the country. And I don't know if there's another team that's got that big of a margin. It's just wild.
Well, one of the things that OB and I were talking about this morning, you probably heard it, Hunter, was that part of the reason for optimism is, yes, we look at ourselves and see the talent. The other reason is Arkansas's got issues. Ole Miss has got issues. Alabama's got question marks. I think LSU, after beating them the way you did last year, and,
it's going to take Hugh Freeze a minute at Auburn to get things turned around there.
I don't like the matchup early against them, but whatever. Like,
it happens.
Peyton Thorne is going to be the guy who's going to lead. Like, no, there's questions on a lot of Miami, who you mentioned.
Certainly.
Could be a scary game, but really, is it? So they all have issues. So you can see why optimism is there.
And something that's interesting is that every one of those guys, that especially the negative ones about us, we're all talking about how difficult our schedule is. That's a tough schedule. They're like, man, they got one of the hardest schedules in the country. I'm looking at it kind of going, all right, yeah, I mean, this is the same schedule we have every year. We're just used to it now, and it doesn't seem when you got Bama at home and you've got Miami does look like a tough opponent, but not ranked and there. I mean, nobody really gets that scared about going to Miami. I mean, so we look at our schedule and going, all right, this schedule sets up nicely. It's better than the last 2 seasons in my mind, and so it's just funny how they.
I agree, and even the Alabama the 800-pound gorilla factor. It's like I mean, you talk to everybody. We got them at home. You know, this would be 3 years we either beat or compete with them, right?
Yeah.
So.
I mean, that road game against Tennessee.
We haven't talked about LSU.
Against LSU, on the road against LSU.
That's a toughie.
Was it 93 the last time we won at LSU?
No. And so yeah, but it's the same schedule we have every year. It's always tough. And I think we see it every year and go, okay, this one's not as bad as the last couple. But people outside of here, they're looking at it going, man, that's a tough schedule.
Yeah, it would be 94, by the way. You said Fan Show didn't have knowledge.
94.
So 94, Leland McElroy busting loose and kind of winning that game. It was like 18.
Who was the coach over there in 94? Was that DiNardo?
Jerry DiNardo, I want to say, because that's when they chickened out.
But
we beat them 95, and they chickened out and quit.
That's right. That's right. At Kyle Field, 95.
They took their ball and went home.
I was my freshman year. I saw that. All right, so you all saw the AP rankings, A&M at 23. So I want you all to kind of give me what it's going to take for 23 to be 13 and for 23 to be 3. All right, in the country. What has got to happen? Give me the jumps. What do you need to see for them to be the 13th ranked team of the country? And then later, what do you need to see for them to be the 3rd ranked team of the country?
Well, it's funny because I saw a lot of people saying this, even like Casey, our girl Casey Smith was like, they shouldn't be ranked. They shouldn't be. But you know what? Rankings are for this year, right? I mean, and look at that roster and look at everything that's on it. There aren't 25 better teams than us. I mean, talent wise, everything else. So I don't mind the ranking. I think it's a good one. But to go from 23 to 13, I'm thinking 5-0 going into Bama. To get from 13 to 3, I think you got to beat Bama and Tennessee. I think that's kind of where we'd be.
Gentlemen?
Yeah, I think in the month of October you got to go 3. I think we have 4 games in October, 3-1. I mean, you can probably split the Alabama Tennessee game to make that jump. But when I looked at it, I was like, I mean, we're 23, and I like we'll beat teams 13 through 22 tomorrow. If we played tomorrow, we're beating all those teams. So I thought it was a little low. I mean, I get it, but to go through and punish a team for last year, 5-7, when we could go through week by week and talk about everything that was just horribly going wrong off the field.
Yeah,
injuries.
Yeah.
It was awful.
So New Mexico win at Miami. Everybody thinks is a win in here, right?
Yes.
Agree?
You were going to have to play well, but yes.
Monroe win. Auburn. I'm worried because that's who I am as a human. But win.
Auburn's a weird team,
Hugh
man.
Freeze
Every year
is going to be up for us, and he's creative and odd enough to give us a problem. But we should win.
But you never know with Auburn. Auburn every year is going to be somebody.
That's going to be.
But A&M is in no position at all, fans and players and coaches, to not treat each game with that same. Because that's been the problem the last few years. They can win the big games or get up for them. You got to win the ones that don't register.
Right, and I think the way it sets up with those 3 games, if you're 3-0 and you get your big SEC opener coming in, that Auburn, that environment, that game will be huge. I think you're fine there. I'm just not.
Arkansas is always up for us. That game's always close, but we should win.
Not that big on Hugh Freeze. I don't think he's all that. So,
Kelly, what? I don't think you commented. What is it going to take for 23 to 13, 13 to 3?
I think being 5-0 is the only way to 13. Short of that, we may never get to 13. But it's got to be 7-0, and Tennessee's got to beat the people they're supposed to beat. I don't know that Tennessee's going to be as great as some people are saying. So if Tennessee struggles out of the gate, we still may not make it to 3 with the win over Tennessee.
Not that
it's there. I mean, I think 7-0 is the minimum. Need a little help.
Not that I expect you to have memorized the AP Top 25, but is there a team that's getting a lot of hype that you expect to fall out of contention early in the process? Like
yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Matt.
Are they 90 miles?
They're about 90 miles west of us?
So you're not buying any. Is that because you don't like the school, or is it because?
I know. It's because it's out of just pure hatred.
Okay.
I try not to pay attention to them. I do know they've got a good quarterback. They've got some. They play in a weak conference, and so they should be. They should be really good. They are perpetually under. I mean, they fail every year.
Yeah.
They're gigantic. They lose these games against these teams that they shouldn't lose to, and so no, I haven't. I wouldn't imagine they'd have a lot of faith in us to do it either. Don't get me wrong, but no, that would be the first team.
They have a 2-game schedule again this year, and the rest of it's pitiful, very easy. Hopefully they drop some, but it's Alabama week 2 and OU. So,
and don't forget Kansas. They struggle against Kansas.
And I will say that I have no trust in Sark. They got a great quarterback and they've got great receivers, and Sark is a great play caller, but he finds ways to screw it up. And he just does.
And looking at that, I think Ole Miss is they're what came in at 22. I know SEC, but I'm not believing in the Ole Miss.
They don't win SEC games.
Yeah.
I don't remember how quickly they get an SEC game. Did you guys hear the South Carolina, a team that isn't ranked, but a lot of people think they're going to be ranked? You look at their schedule. They're dropping games in September.
Early is tough. Yeah,
they got.
Who do they have non-conference? I don't know.
North Carolina.
Furman, I believe. Oh,
they opened North Carolina, and they got Georgia in September.
Yeah. And Mississippi State in September, and I think Tennessee the last week of September.
Yeah,
that's like
that Furman game's tough. Just kidding.
They get that win. All right, let's hit a break here. We'll come back with some more. We do need caller number 1. We're going to give you a free car wash from Aggie Express Car Wash in South College Station off of William D. Fitch in Greens Prairie. Aggie owned and operated with the friendliest staff and a personal touch. They offer a monthly membership. We'll give the first caller a free car wash right now from Aggie Express in South College Station. 979-693-1150. And we're back. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Rollo Insurance Studio fan show presented by Girard Construction. Let's go to Jared, because Jared's got a question that came up on the show. I think organically we were breaking down. I think I asked OB about defense and quarterbacks, and then somebody texted it an actual specific question. Jared?
Yeah, so the question is, in today's college football world, would you rather have a top 10 quarterback with a top 50 defense, or have a top 10 defense but a top 50 quarterback?
Oh,
man.
I'm in.
Wow.
I'm ready.
All right, Kelly.
I think to win big, you have to have the top 10 quarterback and the top 50 defense.
I agree.
The game is played on offense today. That's the way college football works.
That was kind of my opening salvo, too, right?
Yeah.
I think that's my angle, too.
The top 50 defense will stop them enough, and the top 10 quarterback will score enough. And there you go. It's kind of like, what was it, Johnny's first year? Defense wasn't great, but the quarterback sure was.
And the second year, the defense was so bad, and Johnny wasn't.
Well, that wasn't even a top 100 defense.
Right.
The only way I'd argue that, just recent history, go back to 2020, we got Kellen Mond, kind of the running that offense as a manager, and I don't know if we had a top 10 defense, but defense is pretty dang good.
Yes, it was.
And he was not a top 10 quarterback.
But that was probably a top 10 offensive line.
And that was a top 5 running back.
No. Well, I know, but in the parameters you just gave me, I'm going to go with top 10 quarterback, top 50 defense, but you could sway me.
So Jimbo's play calls and us handing off to Williams that year, we wasted a lot of time.
To play devil's advocate, what was Stetson Bennett? Was he wasn't a top 10 quarterback last year, was he?
I bet he was.
He was.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
He was good.
He's good.
He should have, he had some Heisman run. I mean,
he is not a top 10 NFL quarterback.
He wasn't,
but he was a top 10 college quarterback last year.
But that wasn't top 10 defense. That was the defense.
I think you're right, because if you go back to the late 2000s, early 2010s when Bama's winning with McElroy and AJ McCarron and guys like that, I think then you would have said it. But now if you look at the last, Stetson Bennett is not. I know he's not Bryce Young, and I know he's not Trevor Lawrence.
But even
not
Bama
Deshaun
changed.
Watson. He's not any of those guys. But still, I think that.
Well, just quickly.
Okay.
I just did a quick search. He was 6th in passing yards, Stetson Bennett.
Okay, so
and he had more legs than a lot of quarterbacks. So I bet his overall numbers.
So
going to be
Georgia
top
had
10.
I would rather have a top 10 quarterback and a top 10 defense if I could have both.
I'd rather have number one if I had
to cite your example though of Bama changed when Jalen Hurts was running that offense. That the first time it was all defense and a little offense, and then they went Tua, and Jalen came in that season because Tua always gets hurt, and then you had Mac Jones and Bryce Young. Nick Saban, the defensive guru, is competing with a top 10 quarterback and a top 50 defense.
Not this year.
Well, they're going to have to prove that. But with that being, that's how Nick Saban changed. And when Nick Saban changes,
I agree with you.
the game changes.
I think that. So I'd probably lean towards top 10 quarterback, top 50 defense.
All right, guys. So what if I'm going to just present this? We only got about a minute.
But I'll take either.
Well, yeah.
If Connor or Max are in the middle of the road of the SEC, we're talking about 7th or 8th best quarterback in the conference. Does that mean they win 7 or 8 games, or does that mean they win 9, 10 games? If you can dial it down to just that.
Well, I mean, if you look at last season alone, if they're in the middle of the road, we're still better than we were last year.
Mm-hmm.
We
lost 5 of our 7 games by less than a touchdown. So you telling me they're still a touchdown better per game? I don't know. There's my optimism right there.
And you meant Max, by the way. No, Connor. Yeah, I mean, look, we played 5 different starting quarterbacks the past 2 years. This is ridiculous, right? So if we have that guy and he's doing that, absolutely. I mean, your win total is going to reflect that.
The middle of the road quarterback is a middle of the road win total, and a top quarterback is a top win total.
And we think if it is Connor, he'll be middle of the road or just slightly above it at the end of the year.
I think he's going to be really good.
Above it, yeah.
I like him a lot.
Gentlemen, I appreciate you. Thank you very much. That is the Fan Show presented by Girard Construction. Tomorrow on the program, Sean Porter is going to be on with us. Looking forward to talking to him. J.D. Pickle's going to be on the show from On 3. He had a lot of stuff to talk about when it comes to Bobby Petrino and that offense. Billy will be with us as well. That is TexAgs Radio for a Thursday. We'll see you mañana.